and welcome to Too Many Movies, the podcast where we discuss DVDs, Blu-rays, and even the occasional VHS tape. I'm your host, Hal, and with me here today, Badclips. Introduce yourself.
Hello, this is the B of the clips that has the bad in it. Dang, I'm really dying to talk about some movies today.
Well, you're dying hard.
Yeah, you could say that.
Listen, you're supposed to be the more awake one here. I just woke up, so for those listening, they might notice Badclips has a bit of an Australian accent, so that must mean he's from Russia. I'm
definitely from Russia.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, actually, I want to say far away from Russia after what we've seen, but we'll get to that.
That's very true, very true. But anyway, so I woke up, so this is an early morning recording for me. But you know what? For you Badclips, I'd do it in a heartbeat. And plus, we're talking about some movies that I really do want to talk about. So this is exciting. So, seeing as it is the holiday season, we're in the month of December now, I thought it would be fun, and you wanted to volunteer. Well, we'll get to that in a bit. I wanted to talk about the Die Hard movies. So when you said you wanted to come on the show, were just like, hey, can we talk about Die Hard? And I was like, sure. Yeah, that's Die Hard I have on DVD. I'd love to talk about. But it came with a catch, because I have the first 3 Die Hards on DVD in like this interesting trilogy box set. And then because I love a good franchise review here on Too Many Movies, I love talking about several different movies in one episode, I thought we might as well just do all 5, you know? So
unfortunately.
Unfortunately for you. See, you're lucky. You're not like William, where we had to talk about, the entire Friday the 13th franchise across 3 different episodes, but
true.
But I will admit 5 movies was kind of a lot for your first episode. But hey, now you never have to watch the other 2 Die Hards, the bad Die Hard sequels, ever again. I'm free.
But yeah, especially I guess I may as well get out of the way now. This is actually kind of like a blind watch, firstly, so I've never seen these before, which was kind of like the interesting kind of reason why I kind of sort of volunteered, because it gave me an excuse to actually finally check out these movies for the first time. And yeah, and like surprisingly, like I haven't really been wasn't really spoiled on anything big. All I knew beforehand was the Yihai Kaya line and the Bruce and the Willies in the movie. So
yeah, I definitely had seen all these movies beforehand, but like years ago. So this was a good refresher, and it's a good way for me to like really cement my feelings on these movies. Because surprisingly, I knew obviously the first Die Hard would be like the best. But like I think there's like some merit to like Die Hards 2 and 3, which I never thought there would be. Because like whenever I hear Die Hard, like nobody really talks about the second and third ones in like super detail, like they're always
probably like not in like the same vein as something like the Indiana Jones sequels, for example, like the Star Wars sequels, where like
yes,
even if they're not as like maybe in quality as some of the other ones, they're still very much talked about in a large scale.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, I was kind of expecting something out of 4 and 5, because even less people talk about those ones, but
for good reason.
But yeah, no, I basically this is an episode I've been excited to do, because it gives me an excuse to talk about 2 and 3, because I feel like those movies need a little more love. But you know what? We might as well just get into it. I feel like we've done enough of the intro. Let's just start with the first Die Hard, man. So we watched it, Die Hard 1 from 1988. What'd you think of it? Was this your first time watching it for this episode?
Yeah. It was like I said earlier, it was completely first time watching it. And I gotta say, I really love it.
I know. Isn't it everything you ever could have wanted from a Christmas action movie.
Honestly, yeah, it's so I was surprised because I had no idea that like the first two Die Hard movies in particular that this was like a Christmas stuff. So
Mm,
when I remember like because I'm pretty sure like, I like suggested to like be on this episode to do this kind of episode, and you said, oh, let's do it in December, and I was like, okay, that's an interesting time. Maybe he's busy on that. And then like watched the first Die Hard. I was like, oh my god, this is a Christmas movie. Why have I
yeah.
not ever watched this during the holiday season?
Yeah. Well, so that's a. I mean, when I say it's a bit of a debate, I'm doing that with major air quotes. I'd be very shocked to hear somebody's argument into arguing that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie, because I feel like for like a little bit of time there was a bit of a debate going on where people were just like, "Oh, is Die Hard really a Christmas movie?" And like,
Oh really?
I mean, I don't really see how that's an argument. I mean, I think
I
because
mean, they play a Christmas song at the end of the movie. It's kind of like,
yeah, and there's loads of references to Christmas because it takes place on Christmas Eve. So like like I can understand like maybe cuz if you want to consider Die Hard a Christmas movie, does that mean movies like Shazam or like Iron Man 3 are Christmas movies, cuz those also take place around the holidays, but they weren't like they weren't released during the holidays. They were released in like April or May or whenever their respective years. So I can kind of understand, but like also I feel like Die Hard now has had so much time and has so much street cred now that I think you can consider it a Christmas movie. Like maybe movies like Shazam and Iron Man 3 later down the line, but like Die Hard,
mm.
that I feel like enough people at this point are just like, yes, it's a Christmas movie. And also, who fucking cares? Like, yeah,
At the end of the day, it is a movie.
at the end of the
Like,
day, it's an amazing film. Like, whether or
yeah,
not
I mean,
you.
it could be a Hanukkah movie, and it wouldn't make a difference. I mean, because you can like change like the theming around it, and like on its own, it will still be like a great movie,
Oh my god,
regardless of
yeah.
whether or not you want to like debate about it.
So let's get into one of my favorite aspects of Die Hard, the dialogue. I
Ooh,
quote
the
the hell out of
dialogue.
this movie all the time. It is so good. Like, just like like most of my reviews for Die Hard, like over the last couple of years that I've been on Letterboxd, has just been me like quoting the movie. Like, like my very first review, the first thing I type out in my first review of Die Hard is the line when John McClane's like finds the walkie-talkie and he's like talking to like the police dispatch, and the woman's like,
Oh
sir, this line is for emergencies only. He's like, no fucking shit, lady, does it sound like I'm ordering a pizza?
I'm gonna pizza. That's like one of my favorite lines from a movie.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, and I gotta say, with most of the I guess we may as well delve into like Bruce Willis as John McClane. Like,
Yes.
I kind of like thought with initial impressions that he would be kind of like the wise guy, kind of like smart aleck, kind of like that kind of personality.
Mm-hmm.
But like that kind of honestly lines are some of the most like shocking out of nowhere lines, and like it gives like such a good reaction out of me. Like this is one line during the movie. I think he's like talking to. I think it's the FBI, like the news guy. Oh, I forgot who he was. Like later on through the walkie-talkie, and he mentioned something about being.
He's talking
and,
to Dwayne, the police chief.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and he mentions it's like, oh dang, being but something on national television.
Oh, dude, that is my all-time favorite line in this movie. Yeah, no, where he's talking to Deputy Chief Dwayne Robinson from the LAPD, and he's just like, yeah, and that's Paul Gleason, who is in The Breakfast Club. He like calls John McClane an asshole, and John McClane goes, asshole? I'm not the one who just got butt fucked on national TV, Dwayne. Oh my god, that is like
it's such a good line.
It's such a good line. The way Bruce Willis delivers it is so good too. Like, I think it's interesting that you were bringing up like you were kind of worried he was going to be like the usual smart aleck main character, because I think that's an interesting point, because in our time of MCU, like we're kind of used to the smart ass main character, but like back in the 80s, John McClane was kind of a new kind of main character. Like, you had like smart asses, quote unquote, but like not to the degree that Bruce Willis was, you know? Like,
Yeah.
but I feel like what Bruce Willis brings that's different than like your typical like MCU main character, because every MCU character is trying to be Tony Stark, who's like an eccentric billionaire, whereas like John McClane is just a normal guy, like you know, because like
that's an aspect of a character I love about him. Is that he's just
yeah,
like your normal average guy,
yeah,
and like the fact is that like there's not every character has like kind of that smart ass attitude with them. Like
right,
he's like there's only like, maybe like one or two potentially other like characters, but that's really more so with like the banter they have with McClane himself,
yes,
really.
yeah, yeah. Well, so like back in the 80s, you know, the majority of main characters was like, you know, your Schwarzeneggers, your Stallones, your Van Dams, like these macho dudes with like little to no character, but they had muscles. So you're like, oh, that's good enough. Like, whereas,
Yeah.
you know, I feel like, not to, you know, not to be mean to Bruce Willis, but he does seem like kind of a schlubby guy. Like, I mean that I mean that in the most genuinely positive way. Like, that's a good thing. Uh, you know, uh, but yeah, like it feels natural is the thing. Like, you know, he is a bit of a smartass. He's like kind of quipping and quoting, but like in a way that feels like somebody of that smartass nature would. It doesn't.
It feels like it comes out from like his like personality rather than
Yes,
just for the sake of a funny haha they fly now
exactly.
line
Yeah.
sort of scenario.
They fly now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
John McClane as he like goes like down like the like at the end of the movie like and he sees like the helicopter fly. I can just imagine what they fly now. They fly now.
he throws that's the scene where he throws the European terrorist like outside the window and crashes into Sergeant Powell's car, and Sergeant Powell goes, "They fly now."
They fly now. Oh, Brody, come out of the sky. Nah, you're saying things.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, yeah, because so like you'd said, like not every character is like that, and I agree. But I still feel like a lot of the side characters get some moments of levity, even though like you know they're very serious characters. Like a lot of the terrorists are like. One thing I really like about these terrorists is like, yeah, they're like the evil bad guys, but like they still like will treat situations as normal. Like there's several scenes of these characters just like walking around the building like prepping their heist, and they're kind of messy while doing so. Like there's that scene at the beginning where like that guy with like the blonde hair and the glasses, he's like the first terrorist to die, and he's like doing something with like the wiring, and like oh, what's the Carl's like the big German dude with like the long blonde hair, like
Oh yeah, like his brother just walks in like
Yeah.
with like this like
Chainsaw.
chainsaw to
Well,
like shove like goes through the pipes.
Well, what I like about that, so like there's several scenes I like about that, several parts to the scene that I like. So Carl like brings his chainsaw, he's whistling a tune, like a holiday tune while he does so. I can't remember if it's like Jingle Bells or whatever. Like he's whistling, like, so it's like this is just like a job to him, you know. He's he's holding this building hostage and robbing this place, but he's still, you know, whistling a tune. Like, I don't know. That's
He's
just
treating it like his average Sunday.
exactly,
like, job.
and I think that's really interesting. And then then he goes to use the chainsaw on the pipes, and his brother who's like dealing with the wires is just like 999, like, dude, what the fuck?
Like, don't do it, you stupid idiot.
Yeah. So like even there's infighting. I don't know. It's like little things like that I like about. There's also that scene later on when like you know, the LAPD are now involved and they're trying to break into the building, and so like several of the hired goons like go downstairs to like shoot him, and like there's that one Asian guy, I think his name is I want to get this right because like he's been in a couple of things. Al Lung, he's like a very famous like side character in a bunch of 80s movies. He like goes over to like that candy stand, he's like waiting, and then like he notices the candy and he like takes a piece of candy and starts like eating it. Like little things like that, like that's where the comedy comes from, is like little moments of like the characters acting real, you know. Like it doesn't.
It feels like an amazing job for like the like antagonist for the movie.
Yeah,
I think it's like safe to say like these are probably like the best like characterized like villains of like all these
Yeah.
movies. I think it's safe to say that.
Yeah.
And it's just little moments like that is not only like it is like, oh, it's a funny joke. It just also just brings life to these characters, and it like helps him like not feel like just generic villains that could be placed in like another action movie.
Yeah, they're not generic like mustache twirling villains like haha, I'm so evil. Like they're sociopaths, but like in a way that you understand. Like you don't personally understand because like these people are willing to shoot innocent lives to get what they want, but like at least you understand they have a goal, and that goal is
Yeah,
to
like you
rob
feel
the
like
Nakatomi
they're like
Corporation.
it feels like there's like a realistic action like someone like they would do, so it just like it'd be like a generic stereotype
Yeah,
like used, or like a plot device used to push the plot.
right.
Um,
They're very clearly the villains, but you still have fun with them, you know?
yeah, they're fun villains, and I feel and I think like the main villain like Hans in particular,
Yeah. Let's talk
I
about
had no
Hans.
idea it was done. Yeah, I had no idea it was Alan Rickman.
Yes,
He was.
Severus
So that was
Snape.
that was another jump scare.
Yeah.
Ronald Weasley, you better get down here right now, or else I'll air out the entire building.
Mr. Potter, I'm robbing you. Yeah.
Minus $10 billion from your bank account.
Well, yeah, so yeah, Alan Rickman. This was his very first movie role, believe it or not. Like
Ah,
I know, like that's one of the most fascinating aspects of him. Like, I mean, obviously it's a great character, but like the fact that Alan Rickman had never he'd done acting before, but like I think it was in like smaller things, like I would imagine like stage or television or something like that. I don't know. All I know is that like this was like his first like major movie credit was this movie. Um,
that's interesting.
which is
And,
really cool because considering like he's the main bad guy and it's a major movie like Die Hard. Like I don't know, like that's like really fascinating to me that this was his first like major movie credit.
yeah, and he does an amazing job at it.
It's
Like
so good.
it's just so good, and that's just so cool.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned that, like it's just like his first big major like movie role, and he just like sells it as his like his 50th like film that he's been
Yeah.
on.
Well, the interesting thing about this character is I feel like a lot of villains after Die Hard might have like taken influence from him because he's like this, you know, sociopathic bad guy, but like he's very charismatic. He's very like, he's not like yelling or like mad.
Yeah,
Like
he's
they're
very calm and
very
collective, which is like a
calm, very
really
collected.
which is like is just like an attribute of like his character like I really appreciate,
Yeah.
because it leads to like so many like tense scenes. Like one of my favorites was when he's like up he like sees like McLean physically for the first time, right? And he's like
Ooh.
pretending to be like an employee that's like being like taken hostage. And
Mm-hmm.
so like they play like these mind games like with each other, just because John is like he's still being cautious, like that this could be like a villain, and it leaves to, like this like interesting kind of like almost kind of like Death Note like mind games that
Mm.
trying to like out one to try to out one the other, with Hans trying to like kill John as soon as possible, and John trying to figure out if this is like Hans or not, if this
Yeah.
is just one of the henchmen or not, and this leaves to like this great like tension like in that scene. Like it's one of my favorites in the movie.
Oh god, yeah, and I love how like he gives Hans the gun and you're just like, "Oh no, he's giving the guy the gun." And then Hans immediately is just like that's when he turns, he just like like turns the gun on him and I love how like how John McClane is just like, takes a puff of his cigarette and he's just like, "Well, well, well. Hans." And then Hans is just like,
He's just so smug about it. It's like, yeah,
"Yeah.
you tried.
Yeah.
You thought you could.
Yeah, and then Hans goes to shoot him. He's like, "What? Whoops! No bullets. What do you think? I'm fucking stupid." Like that's another line I always think of. And then immediately the elevator comes up, and Hans is like, "You were saying?" It's like so many good back and forths in this movie. It's so good.
Yeah. And it's sort of like interesting to like to see how like with the incorporation of, like the walkie-talkie,
Mm.
like how like it wasn't just like an out of the blue kind of like moment, because I think like some like action movies even like nowadays kind of struggle to kind of like build up that kind of connection, or kind of like that like tension between, or like relation between like the hero and the villain
Mm.
in like these blockbusters. and to think like and like the walkie-talkie aspect of it like is such like a clever idea because because like they still get to like interact with each other, so they know each other as like a threat. They know how that it gives them time to like figure out who like they are and what they're like doing, what could possibly, and then that in the way that like naturally like twines them up as like a good like hero villain kind of duo for like a movie.
Yeah. And what I really like about John in context to this movie is that, at the end of it all, had he not been there, they would have gotten away. Like, because because like in the movie the cops, and then when eventually the FBI gets there, which by the way, the FBI, the first thing they say, "I'm Agent Johnson. This is Special Agent Johnson. No relation." Like that's
No
another
relation.
that's another line I think about constantly because it's just so good. Yeah, because for those who don't know, this big buff black guy and this big buff white guy come up, and they're just, and like the big buff black guy is just like, "I'm Agent Johnson. This is Special Agent Johnson. No relation." it's like, it's so funny.
Yeah, and
But
I think that like brings like another aspect of the movie that I really like. It's like just the little like character moments that
yeah,
that John has with some of the other characters as well, because he and like that cop like you mentioned earlier, they're like built like
Powell, yeah.
they're only met for like that one day, and yet they like managed to like build up like this like connection between the two that like doesn't come off as like, they could have easily come off as like cheesy like action movie kind of stuff.
Yes.
But like the way they handle it is like, it feels like a kind of like a realistic grounded kind of manner, and while like still giving it enough time to like properly flesh out.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, but as I was saying, like all these, parties that are supposed to help out, like, the cops, the FBI, the media, even with Richard Thornburg, played by William Atherton, who also played Walter Peck on Ghostbusters. He, like, all three of these facilities are supposed to be like helping out, and they're just dropping the ball every time. In fact, them doing what they think they're doing as being the right thing actually ends up being the wrong thing that kind of, helps the terrorists like get the jump on, like, because like there's that one part where like the FBI is just like, "Hey, we're gonna shut them down, make them sweat," but it's like, no, that's exactly what they wanted, because now the fucking vault's gonna open, and that's where all the money that they were trying to steal is at. Like,
you're just gonna make the matters worse. And it's almost somewhat a little bit comedic how like somewhat
incredibly,
like, these cops are.
yeah, no,
Like,
it's done so hilariously. Every scene, like, it's like it's not even like frustrating how incompetent they are. It is played for laughs. Like,
yeah,
it's just so funny.
That is an aspect of it I'm so glad, because that could have easily been like such an infuriating matter. Like,
oh yeah,
back to like when he's like trying to call for Albert. You think I'm ordering a pizza? Like, if they didn't make it into like that sort of joke, like I would have like groaned so hard like watching it.
Yeah,
but,
like you're just like, oh, these cops are so stupid, but it's like, no, like the cops are doing everything that they realistically would know to do. Like, yeah, it's not a matter of it is a matter of incompetence, but not like frustrating incompetence. It's understandable incompetence.
And it does a great job at elevating tension, because at the end of the movie with John McClane's wife, I forgot her name.
Holly.
There's like a scene, yeah, Holly, yeah. So there's a scene early in the movie where they're kind of like having a discussion, or when she's kind of like reflecting, right? And there's like the picture, like the family photo with McClane in it, and she puts it down.
Oh.
And then the news, and then what did you know? The people who's supposed to be helping you goofs it up. It's like,
yeah,
hey, you know what? We know who this person who's trying to save everyone is. Let's just like record his children.
Yeah.
And like, let's give like the villains an up and make things worse for McClane. Why not?
Yeah.
And then it leaves to like gives Hans an advantage with like naturally elevates like the tension, because now, oh shoot, he has a wife. Time to
Mrs. McClane, nice to make your acquaintance. Yeah. Like, oh,
I'm going to cuck McClane now.
Yeah. Well, and even just like little scenes involving the media are like scenes that have nothing to do with like that have no like bearing on like the actual building. Like, it cuts back to like when they have like a hostage expert on the news, and he's like talking with like the anchors that are like staying within like the studio, and he's like going like, oh yeah, they're really scared now because they're holding these people hostage, like they don't know what they're doing, like he thinks he knows like what's happening, and then it cuts to like what's actually happening in the building, and like no, like they are completely in control of the situation.
Yeah.
But also like just even just a little thing where like when when he mentions like, oh, like this is what we call like the Helsinki syndrome or something like that, and like one of the news anchors goes, Helsinki is in Helsinki, Sweden, and the guy goes, no, Finland, and then just moves on. And like even like the guy behind the camera, like the producer of the show is just like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like I don't know, just again, it's a little thing that didn't need to be in the movie, but it just like kind of adds to the comedy, but also adds to just showing like how incompetent everybody is, just a little bit. And so it kind of really adds to the fact that like, no, John McClane is like the only one who can really help this situation. And in the end, he does, like through his quick wits and through his just through his quick wits, through his tenacity, his empathy, through like whatever you want to say, like he ends up saving the day.
Power of friendship.
Through the power of friendship.
Believe in the one that believes in you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but it's done so in a way that feels tense, feels natural. It doesn't feel forced. Like you're just like, oh, he's the main character. He's like supposed
John
to win.
McClane's like, yeah, it's not like as if like he's like unscathed or like no, like I gotta say, I think like out of all the movies, this is like the one where like he's probably like the most badly damaged. Like by the end of it, like he goes through like so much pain, which I think is like great. Which is like a great way just to elevate the action. I think like it's saying that just to quickly say the action itself is like so well done. It's like so well framed and choreographed, and like even some like stunt scenes that you think like would it be just like a quick scene, like they still feel tense. Like this is one where he's in the I think he's like about trying to get into like the ventilation. He has to make the jump, and like you think like he's and you think like, oh, this is like a filler scene, like just gets him to like another part of the movie to build the plot. But they dedicate time to kind of like show like give tension to that scene with like, oh no, like the strap from his gun is gonna like break apart.
Yeah,
he jumps and he jumps and he like grabs the thing, but like he almost like slips. Like it really feels like it's a really daunting task.
Yeah. But then like,
so
and then he crawls into the vent, and that's when he like flicks on the lighter, and he goes like, "Come out to the coast, well, get together, have a few laughs." Like that's when the movie decides to have some levity. After going through like that really tense scene, then you have a bit of levity. So like, oh, it's paced perfectly. Like the levity is not distracting from the tense scene you just saw, but like the tense scene and the levity just like they go together like peanut butter and jelly, as opposed to like if in a lesser movie if they were to go together like peanut butter and sardines. Like it's brilliant.
Yeah, it would have been worse if they did peanut butter and they fly now.
Yeah. True. There's just so many good things. Like, oh, I want to talk about the watch. So like at the beginning when we meet Harry Ellis, how he's just like doing coke on the fucking desk as like John the cop walks in. He's just like, oh, how you doing, man? It's just like
and he quickly just tries to cover watch like, oh hey, I got Holly this watch.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, what I love about that watch is like what it represents. So like, Harry Ellis is just like, yeah, I got her this nice watch, like this nice, really expensive watch, because that's all that matters, like money and like materialism and whatever. But like, that watch comes back at the very end when like Holly, like when John shoots Hans Gruber out the window, he's like hanging on to Holly's arm, but then before Hans is about to shoot John again, John like unclips the watch that Holly was,
and then he like falls off,
and that's his undoing. He falls off from holding on to that watch that was set up very early on in the movie. It's like, everything plays a part. Like,
Yeah, that's one of my favorite aspects of the movie, like this movie, and
yeah,
like the other like next two movies, they kind of do this like varying degrees. Like this one, but like the first one like does it so well because it sets up like a lot of like these little different elements, like like the so it's like the driver, the like the boy, I forgot the name of the vehicle.
Argyle,
Yeah, guy. He's
the
like
limo
drives
driver, Argyle.
the limo driver.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
Argyle.
yeah guy. Yeah, he sets up like being earlier movies trapped like he's trapped in the building. He's thinking it's like a funny comedy thing, and
Yeah,
like even he gets like a moment where like one of the villains are trying to escape,
yeah,
and then like he like drives through into like the car and like stops him.
yeah.
Like there's so many like different short bits like that. They like you probably wouldn't think like would get paid off like the watch. Like I definitely didn't think. I thought it was just like a way of like like the guy earlier just being like a douche and all that.
Hmm.
But no, they come back and pay off, which just
Yeah.
makes this like just feels so satisfying to watch.
One of my favorite Argyle scenes is like when he's like in the limo and he's like pouring some like alcohol into like a glass with like ice in it, and like he just so happens to be watching the channel that where they're like reporting on like, oh, the Nakatomi Tower is being is like under attack. It's being held by being held by terrorists. It's being held hostage by terrorists, and he just like puts the glass down and just drinks straight from the bottle. Like it's a great. It's a again little thing, but it adds so much.
I think like my favorite scene with him was like I think it was like when like the body gets thrown out of the building and like it's like and like the cop again, I keep on forgetting his name, but like he keeps on like he drives around and all that, and then it cuts back to him just chilling in the limo
And
like,
you see the
anything.
police car going behind him, like yeah.
Yeah, he's just like hanging out with like the toy in the
Yeah, the
back.
teddy bear, and he's like bumping like 80s rap. Yeah, no, it's a great that every time they cut back to him, it's funny. Or like yeah, when like Joseph Takagi like gets shot, Holly's boss, he like gets shot, which for one thing, that's a very tense scene. How he's just like, oh, you're not gonna get the code out of me. You're just gonna have to shoot me. And Hans Gruber goes, okay, and shoots him. Like that was really surprising. And then John's just like, Argyle, tell me you heard the shots. Tell me you're calling the cops. And then it cuts back to Argyle. He's like on the phone with his hoe, and he's just like, of course I'm working, babe. My boss thinks I'm on the way to Vegas. it's like realistically, he wouldn't have been able to hear even if he wasn't like playing music really loudly. But like at the same time, you're still just like frustrated, like, oh, Argyle, but like understandably frustrated. Like it's still funny.
Yeah, he's an idiot, but we love him.
Oh, of course. Oh god, there's just so much to this movie that's so good. I don't know, is there anything else specific you wanted to talk about this movie?
Oh, I guess if we want to like wrap it up, I think like the entire like final scene in general, the climax. I think.
Oh, so like well, do we want to more so the Hans Gruber aspect, or like when Carl like comes back?
No, like the Hans like Gruber aspect.
Okay.
And where like McLean's like kind of like limp, like he like after he like smashes through the window.
Yeah.
And it's like set up and you're wondering, oh, what's gonna happen? And like it's established he's only got like 2 bullets left.
Oh, dude, 2 bullets left.
And then it just leads to like this one scene where like he like where like Hans and John are like just like having like a bit like this quiet like still like moment, and then they just both start like cackling.
Yeah.
Like,
well, because that's when Hans Gruber's just like, typical Americans, always wanting to be the cowboy, but you will not You'll not walk off into the sunset with Grace Kelly. And he's like, oh, he's like, you will not be Roy Rogers walking off into the sunset with Grace Kelly. And he's like, it was Gary Cooper, you asshole. But that's when
and then he says, like, you big guy, yeah, motherfucker. Back.
Yeah, yeah. So
is like one.
Well, let's talk.
One thing I had no idea about, because like he says like early in the like John says it early in the movie, it's like a bit of fun banter, and I was like, oh, I thought that would be like a big moment like it is played in the other movies.
Well, so it kind of is. Well, so yeah, so early in the movie, that's when like when John first talks to Hans, which I like that scene, how like, Hans is trying to scope out who John is. He's like, you're pretty good for a security guard, and he goes, wrong answer, Hans.
Wrong again.
But like then he's just like, do you think you're Do you think you're an American cowboy? And he's just like, I was always partial to Roy Rogers. Which I completely forgot Roy Rogers was like a character, was like a Western character like many years ago. I remember Roy Rogers. I'm pretty sure there used to be like a restaurant like chain called Roy Rogers. I don't think they're around anymore because I have not heard them in years, but like I feel like I remember like on like long car trips through Connecticut there was like a Roy Rogers we would stop at. But like I don't know, every time I hear Roy Rogers I think of that like fast food chain from like years ago. I don't know if it's still around though.
Probably
anyway,
not.
Probably not. Anyway, my point is, sorry. So yeah, he's just like, I was always partial to Roy Rogers, and then he's just like, "What, you think you're a cowboy or something like that?" And then John just lets out the very famous line, "Yippee ki yay, motherfucker!"
Yeah, he lets out the yabba dabba doo.
Yeah. So then later on, when Hans has his wife like held up at gunpoint, he's just like, "What was it you said? Yippee ki yay, motherfucker!" And like John naturally starts laughing. Everybody starts laughing. It's like the laughing scene in Evil Dead 2. Everybody's just like, ah, ha, 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 it's so funny. And then,
he said it.
He said the word. So then
he said
the funny. And then that's when, John uses his last 2 bullets. He nails that one hired goon like in the head. So then he's down for the count. But then he like only kind of wounds Hans Gruber, which then leads into the watch falling scene, which to go back to the watch falling scene, did you know that shot of Hans like falling, like that's actually Alan Rickman's genuine face realizing that he's falling, because they were gonna do like they were gonna like let him go at like 3, 2, 1, but then they let him go at 1, and so, or they let or it was like they let him go, they were gonna let him go at like 1, 2, 3, but they let him go at 1, and so like that's his genuine face just being like, whoa, like.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Obviously he was on like a rope, and like they probably had like, precautions and stuff. So like they didn't actually drop him off a building that high.
I mean, wow, he fell off the building and lived? Who would have thought?
Yeah. Interesting. Huh. Weird.
He must be a professional.
He must be a professional, yeah. But yeah, no, so but it's still shocking to like fall from a great height. So like that's definitely where that like face comes from. It's so good. Like it's such a good moment in the movie. But yeah, I guess the other last thing, like I kind of said, the scene with Carl where like, there's that scene where him and John McClane are fighting, and then like you think like he's done for because like John like wraps
like
around
he like literally hangs him like, with like a chain and all that.
Hangs him with a chain, and like he literally like his face is like red, and like you think he's like, just like laying there limp, and you're just like, oh, he's done for. But then
there's literally a scene like before the climax where like all like the hostages
all
are
the
like,
hostages
escaping,
around,
and you see him and you see him hang him, so you think like, oh, okay, yeah, he's definitely dead.
Yeah, he's gone.
He could have not been on there that long.
Yeah,
apparently not.
Apparently not. Yeah, no. Then like a woman screams. He like comes out from like under this towel because like you think like because he kind of went by as like a hostage, but then it's just like, nope, it's me, motherfucker, and he's about to shoot John, but then Sergeant Powell shoots him, which is it's a scene that's piggybacking off of a previous scene. So like there's that scene in like the beginning of the 3rd act when Sergeant Powell's just like, I'm a desk jockey. I'm not supposed to be doing this.
And he talks about how like he like shot like a kid.
Yeah, I shot a kid. Yeah, I shot a kid. It's such an interesting way to delivering that line, but it leads to like it's actually kind of a very mature scene. How he's just like, yeah, I shot a kid, and like one of my favorite lines in that scene, how he's just like, they teach you everything when you're being a rookie except how to live with a mistake. It's like, holy shit, like that's kind of a that's kind of a heavy thing. And then it leads to him shooting somebody finally, which I guess you could kind of make the argument that's kind of a weird lesson to have, but it is an action movie.
I was kind I was a little bit weirded out because like you see he's kind of like about to be like in tears for like shooting again because of obviously like he's reminded of like of years action in the past. But then like a bit like heroic music plays, and it's kind of like, oh, that's a little bit strange.
It's a little bit strange, but at the same time, it's a cheesy action movie. Like at this, like, am I really gonna like wag my finger at fucking Die Hard for having like a lesson like that? Of course, Die Hard's gonna have a lesson like that, and like
they literally nuke a building.
they nuke a building. Yeah, like come on.
I don't think it's anything to be gossiped about.
Yeah.
I think speaking of that building, I think one of the last things I want to talk about is just how well like utilized like the setting
Oh,
like the
yeah.
building is.
Yeah.
Like this like a great you really get like familiar like with like the building because they constantly go back to like all these different locations like throughout the entire movie. They don't just like go back to like one room once and then they just like, oh, you never see it again. Like you see it like constantly throughout the movie. Like one of my favorite examples is like when they're when John's like running up in like that construction site and you see the poster of like the naked like lady.
Yeah, he's just like,
then,
girls.
and then he like and then you see later as he's like running away from like the villains, and you see it again. And I think like I forgot what action he does, but I think he like touches it.
I think
like,
I think every
like,
I think every time he like touches it, just to be like, girls, like, like
it's like boobs.
boobs, not for me.
I'm sorry, I'm married.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, again, like, yeah, little things like that really add character to this movie. That's what I love about this movie is like it's everything you could want out of an action movie. It's well paced, it's well acted, it's funny, but it's also serious at times, but in a way that like, meshes together beautifully. And like you said, yeah, it is a bit of a bottle movie because it takes place, not only does it take place in like one night, which is really, really cool. Like I love movies that take place in like a short amount of time. But like, it does utilize its one location pretty well because it's a building. So you can have like, so yeah, it is like a building. So it's like one location, but you can have like several like smaller locations within that one building. It's kind of like that. Did you ever see the movie Dread? Not the Stallone Dread, the Carl Urban Dread. Because that's
no, I haven't seen other Dread.
Okay. Well, it's actually pretty good. Like I know that's like one of those movies that's just like, oh, this is so underrated. Like nobody talks about it. It's just like, is it really? It is really good. Like I highly recommend it. But like that's a movie that takes place entirely in like one building, but it uses that one building really cleverly. Where like, every floor is like a different a different world, so to speak. Like, because like it's like this gigantic, like huge, like built like apartment complex where like all these different people live in. It's like an entire community like in this one building, and it really like utilizes that really well. And
it has layers.
It has layers, yeah. But but yeah, this movie does that too. Obviously to like a much smaller degree, but like in a way that makes sense. Like if you were to hold like an action movie in an office building like this, I think this movie does it like pitch perfectly using its set and whatnot, its locations. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's definitely one of like the aspects of the movie that really like bring this that I really appreciate a lot.
Yeah.
Because it could have been so easy to be like, oh, let's like maybe do like one building for maybe like half the movie, and like they could have done, oh, for example, oh, there's a chase scene where they're getting away with the money, we have to follow them to wherever they're going. Like they could have so easily done that.
Yeah,
but they didn't, and I really appreciate that.
That's one of the things that like later movies, I won't say falter because they do things a little differently in the other movies, but they don't. Yeah. I feel like it's a little harder to understand the setting in those later movies, whereas like here, the Nakatomi Tower like inside and out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's fucking Die Hard, man. Like, what else is there to say?
It's amazing, and it's surprisingly the best one.
Yeah.
I will say though, it is not my favorite. It isn't my favorite one, and we'll get to that like later.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. No. I'm very interested to hear what your favorite is, because this is absolutely my favorite. But like, I feel like I can see the argument for like any of the other ones. Well, maybe not 4 and 5, but
Oh yes, 5's my favorite.
Okay.
I like the part when they had a good day and they died hard.
yeah, that was a great scene. But yeah, is there anything
else? I clapped.
And you clapped. Well, is there anything else we have to say about the first Die Hard before we move on? I feel like we could talk about like little details in every freaking scene, but like
Yeah, but we'll be here like forever.
exactly.
Like,
I think
it would just be like a single episode.
exactly. This could have realistically been its own episode, but like no, I had to have the entire trilogy on DVD. So
I can't believe you had to do it, Hal. It's all your fault.
it is my fault. No, I know. well, it's interesting because like I guess to go a little into this DVD that I have, I remember when I bought this. So this was like years and years ago, probably like I want to say summer of 2016. I went to, I think it was like a Newberry Comics in Boston, if I'm not mistaken. And I was like, oh, I really want Die Hard on DVD because I love that movie and I want to own it physically. And the only thing I could find that had Die Hard was this trilogy DVD set where like, it's the first three Die Hards in like this uh in this DVD pack. Like, the DVDs are like exceptionally thin. So then they could like fit all three of them in here. But like I was like, it's the only thing here. And I was like kind of desperate for Die Hard, so I just bought it. And I'm like, well, now I have to watch the second and third one. So I did. I watched the second one, so we can get into that one right now. Die Hard 2, Die Harder, which is technically what it's called.
Title.
Oh my gosh. I love the title Die Hard 2, Die Harder so much. But anyway, so I was like,
and I hate what the other sequels like do with their titles, but I guess we'll get into
yeah,
that
exactly. But yeah, anyway, Die Hard 2, Die Harder, great title. What'd you think of Die Hard 2? Was this your first time? Well, yes, it was your first time watching.
Wow, it was actually my second time watching it because it's the second movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had like something I heard from like people like, oh yeah, obviously the first one's the best one. So I kind of had like this impression that oh yeah, they're all gonna like drop in quality. But like the thing is, like I was concerned about like how much of like a gap between the movie it was. And surprisingly with this one, it's still a pretty good action movie.
Yeah, so I've heard people don't like this one. Like, of people who are aware of it, like, reactions are more so, like, a little more mixed than, say, Die Hard 3. And not that I don't get that. Like, I absolutely understand. It is very...
I completely get, like, where they're coming from.
Yeah.
It kind of does more so, like, feel a little bit more standard, especially in comparison, like, oh, you just hopped off from, like, this, like, amazing movie, and now it doesn't... And then now, like, you don't get as great of a movie. Like, that could play, like, a factor, like, in, like, people's impressions.
I think...
But then again, like, even without it, like, I can definitely see reasons why people, like, aren't really as, like, don't give, like, a bit of a good eye to this movie.
I think the other thing, too, is it is definitely the sequel that is trying to, like, be a little, like, trying to remind you of how good the first one is. It is being a little derivative of the first one.
Like, it's literally the same Christmas setting as well.
Yeah, it's still trying to be a Christmas movie. They bring back other characters, so they have Sergeant Powell and Holly and even Richard Thornburg coming back. Like, these characters from the first movie, it's like, yeah, obviously it's fine. Like, I don't mind characters like Holly coming back and Powell coming back, but like Richard Thornburg, like, did we really need to see him again? Like, it's just kind of a weird choice. And yeah, there's like a lot of moments in this movie where John McClane just like, it's happening again, and you're just like, yep.
Lois, she's Lois, she was crazy. This is like the one time when I was in the airport.
Yeah, exactly. So, but all of that in mind, like, I don't hate this movie. Like, I actually had a way more fun time than I was expecting rewatching it. I was just like, holy shit, like, I'm actually having fun. Like, it's very cheesy. It's a very cheesy, like, early 90s action movie.
Yeah.
So I like, one thing I really like about it is just I like how obviously I like John McClane. I've grown to love John McClane as like this really fun action movie character. And I really feel like Bruce Willis, like, whether or not he's bringing his A game, he is entertaining in this role.
Yeah.
Especially in these early movies. Like you're just like,
Yeah, like, but back again, like even though it's a little bit like a cheesy like moment when where he says, "Oh, I have to do this all again."
yeah,
Well, it's still I still think it's like a very funny scene. Like in
yeah,
fact, I think like the comedy in general, like I think it's still somewhat on par with like the first movie in like
yeah,
some regards.
yeah. There's not as many good lines, but there are a lot of fun lines. But yeah, well, not a good example, but like at the beginning, like at the very beginning, when he's getting his car towed, like that, I will admit, is where like the movie definitely falters. Where like
Yeah.
John is just like,
You immediately get like the tartar card and then you just like throw it into like the scene. There's not
well,
like
because
full
like, and then John is just like immediately like dumping all this exposition to this random cop, just being like, "Come on, man, it's Christmas Eve. This is my wife's car. Like, I'm a LAPD. I used to be a New York cop, but then I moved to LA with my wife." And I'm just like, dude, like the cop does not care. Like, I know you're telling this to the audience, so then we're all caught up as like, oh, this is why you're an LAPD now, which in the grand scheme of things didn't go anywhere because he never goes back to Los Angeles in any of the other movies. So like,
Yeah.
especially in the third one when like he's divorced again from Holly and he's just back in New York, you're just like, oh, was it that really didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. Whoops.
Yeah, oopsie. Again, like that's something that really shows just like how this movie's just not as good as the first one. Like,
Yeah, like honestly, like that's like one of like that's really like the main thing that kind of drags about it is like how it kind of delivers the exposition and kind of how like it tries to pace the movie in general.
yes.
Because you get like there's like you get like that moment where quick exposition bit, and then as the movie plays out, you like get like these like quickly like introduce like the villains and all that, and then you get like the first action scene,
Mhm.
and it kind of feels like it's the rising action. But then you kind of get like this period of the movie where it feels like okay, it's actually giving proper time to flesh out, and kind of feels like it's introducing
Yeah.
things again. It feels like the introduction again.
Well, because like let's talk about the villains who are not like, especially like the main guy. The main guy is this guy like Colonel Stewart or just
Yeah,
Stewart.
Stewart. Yeah,
So
Stuart Little.
yeah, Stuart Little. He's
Yeah.
played by William Sadler, who is a good actor and he plays the part fine, but he's not as like charismatic as Hans Gruber.
Yeah.
And I feel like the movie kind of understands that. So it doesn't like it doesn't try to be like another Hans, but like I don't know. You definitely feel like the movie's trying something with him. Like his very first scene is him doing like that weird tai chi, like naked in that hotel room.
When he's just butt naked, he's watching
Yeah,
the TV and he's
yeah.
getting ready.
Well, he's
And then
watching.
He's like,
He's watching
he's
the
watching,
TV,
like,
the news report.
sorry,
That's
you go.
like, well, I'm just saying he's like watching the news. That's like giving the audience exposition, and it's like, why is he watching the TV? Like, what is he gonna get out of this? Like, it's just kind of weird.
He needed a reminder.
Oh yeah, he needs to be reminded. Like, oh yeah, I'm the villain, right?
Oh yeah, I'm supposed to like get like this drug lord guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the other villain is like this dictator who's played by Franco Nero, who's like a very famous actor. Yeah, he's playing like some. Oh, according to Letterboxd, he's listed as General Ramon Esperanza. So he's a general, but I thought he was a dictator. Again, like he's also the villain, but then also like John Amos, who plays like a major later in the movie, is also revealed to be a twist villain. But like he was not really in the movie for like the first hour. He was not in the first hour of the movie. You get like a couple scenes of him, and then he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm the twist villain." You're just like, "Oh, okay." Random.
I mean, I don't completely like. I'm not really completely. I don't really mind that because there was like, even though it's kind of like an out of the blue moment, like they do like give like some cool like explanations. It kind of hits beforehand. It's like, oh yeah, I trained Stuart, and you think like, oh, he's gonna kind of have like this mini kind of like revenge,
Sure. Yeah.
for storyline, and then the twist is like, oh, okay, that's kind of a weird
Yeah,
thing.
he's
Like,
actually working with
Kind
him.
of makes sense.
Yeah,
And
no.
and it doesn't really feel as like, oh, that's just like it comes out of nowhere,
Right.
like completely. There's like some aspects that like, oh, I guess that
Yeah.
kind of makes sense.
You know what? That is a good point. Like, it's not. That's the thing with this movie. None of these things are downright awful. They're just not as like tight as
good
the
as
first
they
movie.
could have been.
Yeah, they're not as tight. I feel like, a little tweaking from here and there, like, could have improved this movie. But, like, again, this is from the same director as, like, the Exorcist prequel that Warner Brothers wanted, but then realized they fucked up. There's a whole thing with the Exorcist prequel. I'll give you the shorter version. So Warner Brothers, I know this is a bit of a tangent, but I need to explain this. So Warner Brothers tasked writer director Paul Schrader with making an Exorcist prequel. He made like 90% of it. Warner Brothers did not like it. They did not like it. They scrapped the whole thing, started completely fresh with some new characters and a new director, that being Rennie Harlan, who's the director of Die Hard 2. And then they released that. And it was a huge disaster critically, financially, what have you. It was a huge disaster. So they're like, oh, well, we have this other movie, this other version of the Exorcist prequel by Paul Schrader. So they released that, which was also awful. So...
Wow, it's almost as if the Exorcist, because the original movie was written the intent of not having a prequel.
Yeah. Wow. I can't believe I didn't want to know more about The Exorcist before The Exorcist.
I cannot wait for him to write pre-Die Hard. Die early.
Die early. Yeah. So anyway, Rennie Harlan, awful Exorcist movie, but made a pretty good Die Hard sequel. Not a great Die Hard sequel, but pretty good. Like that's the thing with this movie is like, yeah, like you are watching it and you're like, this is not as good as the first one, but like there's some charm to it. Like, I don't know, John McClane fighting with Dennis Franz as like this police captain is just so funny because like they're just exchanging F-bombs between each other.
That's actually one of my favorite elements of the movie. It's like even though it could be like really annoying, like despite the fact that like he's like proven to be competent and like with the last movie, like all like the cops are like still kind of nagging on him, which with this movie it kind of makes sense because that was just like a one-time thing. It was just a coincidence. It couldn't possibly happen again.
That's a good point. How they're just like, oh yeah, you're John McClane. I read about you with the Nakatomi Tower. You're not John Wayne here or something like that. Like, yeah, they're just like, come on, dude. Like, you're not that much of an expert. Like, you were just lucky. But yeah, so then I guess that kind of adds to this movie how you're just like, oh, was it luck? Can he really defeat the bad guys? Well, yes, because it's a Die Hard movie.
There's 5 of these.
Like, yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, that is an interesting aspect. I agree.
I will say it does lead to great comedic moments. Like, I think this movie is like in general, it's just really funny. Like one of my favorites, like at the early of the scene, he meets up with, he's noticed something suspicious with these guys walking across the airport, which is the villains, and then walks up to like the cops, and then it's revealed to be the same cops. It's like, hey guys, I think I found something, and then you realize it's the douche cop from earlier in the movie, and he's like, hey, what? And he's like, oh, I found Santa Claus.
Did he say Santa Claus or did he say Elvis? I thought I remember him saying Elvis.
Oh no, it was Elvis. You're right. It was Elvis.
I mean, either way, I thought
it's still a funny scene.
Yeah, it's still a funny scene.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree.
And also like the janitor has like some really funny lines. Like at the end of the movie, when
Marv,
after like the plane explodes, Marv, and then he says like a line. I forgot how it was.
I'll be damned if I gotta clean this mess up. Yeah. Marv, classic Marv. Yeah. Well, actually, it's interesting. So, plane exploding, you just reminded me. So, there is a scene kind of in the middle of the movie, kind of similar to Harry Ellis's death in the first movie, where like John's like really guilt-ridden with having yes, the death of this douchebag on his mind. Like, yeah, he was a douchebag. He totally deserved it. But, like, John still feels guilty because, he let a man die. Whereas, like, here, they kind of amp that up where, like, they have an entire plane full of British people die. So there's, like, this plane that's being piloted, but it's like it's like this British plane on the.
Oh yeah, and like the villains have like hijacked like
the villains have hijacked the
navigation, the navigation systems and all that.
Yeah,
and they essentially they like crash them to their death as kind of a bit of a warning sign.
Yeah,
and I got to agree that like I think this does like a way it's like an aspect I think does a bit better than the first movie. Like, I think like John is like way more guilt-ridden because like, even though we don't really see like these people as like actual people, we can assume that like they're like decent people, right? Like
Yeah.
they're like innocent lives have been like killed, and you see you get the scene where he's so guilt ridden and all of
Yeah.
that. Like he tried everything. Like he literally walked out, tried to like wave like the fire thing, and you think like, oh, because it's an action movie, like, oh, it's gonna work, and then it doesn't.
And then it doesn't. Like, it explodes. I'm pretty sure that pilot, by the way, just a little tangent, that pilot is, I think it's Cole Meany. He's Miles Standish in Freebirds. Fun fact.
Oh. No. Reggie, we gotta stop the plane from crashing. We gotta go back in time and help John McClane. They get Christmas back on the menu.
Wow, Jake, it sounds great. Yeah.
Could have fooled me.
That plane was in high school? Could have fooled me.
That's enough Freebird talk. You already had a season. This is Christmas now.
I know. This is Christmas, exactly. But yeah, no, I think it's a very insane scene how they're just like, oh yeah, we're just gonna blow up a plane full of innocent people. You're just like, holy shit. Like, whether or not this movie kind of deals with that aspect better than the first one, I feel like that can be a little debatable, because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like John was a little more upset in the last movie having one guy die, whereas like here an entire plane dies, and he's just like, he is upset, but he's not like, I don't know. I feel like he could have been a little more upset, but like, I guess that goes into like nitty gritty details that maybe don't matter, you know?
Where, you could like honestly like debate for either case, because
Sure,
like, he knew the one guy a little bit longer than like these people who like,
yeah,
he's obviously never met before.
Sure,
and the fact that you mentioned that they're British, they kind of deserve it.
Well,
I'm joking. Don't cancel me.
All my British listeners, don't cancel him. That's right, all two of you.
Trust me, I'm Australian. I'm like a cousin to you guys. It's okay.
But yeah, like, I still think that's a really cool scene to have in an action movie. Like, no action movie nowadays would have the balls to have a scene like that. Just like blow up a plane full of people. Like, you know, like I have to respect this movie for going that far. Like, I feel like like at least this movie has tension, you know, like something like that adds tension to, like, you know, you're just like, oh shit, these guys are not fucking around.
Yeah, that's why like I still like, while like the villains, I definitely think they could be better in terms of like how they're like characterized. Like I still appreciate the fact that they are still threats to be taken seriously.
Absolutely. And you know, I don't mind some of the derivative bits from the first movie that are in this movie. How, like, you know, you have a scene where like he calls Sergeant Powell. He's just like, hey, I'm faxing over these fingerprints to you, and you're just like, oh, this is the one scene with Sergeant Powell, but like, you know, they felt like they had to include him because he was in the first movie. But it's nice to see Sergeant Powell, and like they still have great chemistry together, even though they're never in the same scene. It's just them on the phone, but like that just shows you.
And they don't have like a similar scene back in like the later movies, which I kind of thought would be like a reoccurring thing, but apparently not. But still, it's like a really nice moment, even though it can be like, it could be considered a bit fan servicey.
And even though I'm not that big of a fan of bringing back Walter Peck, I still think the scenes with him are kind of funny. Like, there's that scene where he's like on the plane, he's like complaining about not being in first class, and then he like sees the woman, he sees Holly, he's just like, I have a restraining order against that woman. And then like the stewardess goes up to Holly and is just like, what did you do? And she's like, I punched him in the face. And the stewardess is just like, would you like a bottle of champagne? Like,
champagne?
Like, that's funny.
And you can come back to like throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
Like, you see them pouring champagne again. Speaking like, there's like one scene at the early in the movie where we learned that like Holly's on the plane. She's sitting next to like this old lady. It's like, technology is amazing.
Yeah.
And she brings out the taser. Like, now I can bring this. It's like, I tried it on my dog. Yeah, it was limping for a week.
Limping for a week. You're just like, Jesus Christ.
It's like, geez, a lady.
But again,
do
like,
you need to go to like a mental hospital?
but that's the genius of the early Die Hard movies. The side characters are so good. Like, even just characters you get like one or two scenes are so entertaining. Like,
Yeah. Like even with like the twist villains, like the main guy, like he has a funny line with the other cop that like John has been like Batman the amount of time because it's out when they're about to invade the church, and Lorenzo's obviously complaining, and like the guy's like, Lorenzo, shut the f up and do something useful.
yeah, Lorenzo, shut the fuck up and do something useful. Yeah.
Something useful.
Well, what I kind of like about this movie is like Lorenzo is a huge douchebag to John McClane. But like you'd think like in any other movie he'd be like kind of revealed to be the twist villain because he's so like rude to McClane, whereas like Major Grant, John Amos's character, who's like actually being somewhat nice to John, then he's revealed to be the twist villain. He's just the old switcheroo.
Yeah, or even if they didn't do a twist, like you think it could have been like a side character that could have been like just pushed aside at the end, or like something bad happens to you, like, aha, he's been an idiot the whole time.
Yeah.
But then like the neat thing is like, well, by the time it's revealed all of them, like the villains and all that, they're kind of like forced to like work together and kind of act out, which is like an aspect I really like.
Well, there's that scene where like he goes back to the police station and he's just like holding like one of the guns that the bad guys had, and Lorenzo's like chewing him out, like being like, you asshole, like don't be bringing this gun into my police station. And then like John like starts shooting him, and like everyone's just like, ah, like you're shooting a gun in like in a police station. But then he's like, it's blanks, you idiot.
Blank.
And it was like, that's a great twist.
Moron.
Yeah, that's a great twist. And then that's when Lorenzo, Dennis Franz's character, is like, all right, you're onto something here. And so then they start to work together, and then also it brings back the douchebag cop from the first scene where like you realize,
hey, this is my brother
McClane, this is my brother. Yeah. And he's just like, how you doing? He's just like, oh,
how you doing?
Of course.
Of course.
Assholery runs in the family.
But that's like one of the things I think that's why I still really enjoyed this movie, because even though you could debate whether like the action, like the set pieces themselves, you can debate if like they're still on par, but at least like the way it's edited, I find there was like a lot more kind of like lean towards the fast cuts or more cuts between the actions, which I think personally for me kind of like weakens like it as a whole, because you kind of get less time focused on one shot and really to appreciate like the choreography and all that's gone into a scene.
Yeah,
but it's still good action at the end of the day.
I agree.
I agree. Again, like the funny side characters and like the villains are still threatening. You still have like the cool set pieces, like the plane at the end where John is like John jumps from a helicopter and not now, Hal, not now.
Okay.
We get to that later. And he jumps on like the wing of the plane and everything, and like that's still a great, and they're all like fighting on the plane, like that's still a great set piece. At least like a satisfying end where he like lights up like the leaked oil and like just blows up the plane.
Well, yeah, no, I agree. Like a lot of the plane exploding effects are really good. Like, you know, like we were saying earlier, where the bad guys like cause the British plane to explode. Like, it's just a really cool effect. Like it like explodes, and like you can see like all the different pieces fly everywhere. You're just like, wow, that's a really cool effect.
Yeah, and then there's like a little scene that like follows afterwards where they picked up like this burnt kind of like toy, and I was like, oh, that like adds to like what just happened, like this absolute like this like massacre essentially.
Oh, I didn't know about that deleted scene. That's interesting.
It might have come with like the version maybe I got, but
yeah,
I'm pretty sure there was like a scene in the movie.
Maybe you Australians can handle burnt toys more than us Americans. I guess
because we had a decent rating system, which I guess we'll talk. Well, we'll talk about that later when we get to the fourth one in particular.
Oh yeah. But yeah, no, that's the thing is like this movie. The best way I can describe it is it's simplistic. Like you don't put it on in the same way that we would put the first Die Hard on. Like you put the first Die Hard on, you know, it's a bit of an event. Like you're sitting down, you're just like you're paying attention to every scene, you're enjoying everything about it. Like I feel like Die Hard 2, it's a little laid back. Like you can just like kind of pop it on like a Sunday afternoon. Like if this was like playing on TV, like I'd watch it. I'd just be like, oh yeah, Die Hard 2. I'll watch it. It's entertaining. And yeah, it's just it's very just I don't know. It's just not as impressive as the first one. But like, I don't know. There's just something still enjoyable about it. Even just little things I enjoy about it. There's a scene where they watch season 1 Simpsons in this movie.
Oh yeah,
That's when
they're
the
on the
like
plane.
yeah. So when Holly's
the,
still
like-
on the plane and like they're like circling around DC, they're just like, oh, we're gonna tune into local channel, and like they start playing season 1 Simpsons. The episode "There's No Disgrace Like Home." That's when they're like doing like the shock therapy.
Yeah, it's 10 out of 10 right now. Okay, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Masterpiece.
Well, it's interesting.
The
I
meta reference.
was thinking about that because so this movie came out in July of 1990, but that Simpsons episode came out in like January of 1990. So I'm just thinking like, when did they film that? Did they film that like right away or like
maybe they might have had like something else and then like post production, like,
maybe
kind of sort of thing.
Maybe I was just thinking about that. I'm like, interesting. I don't know. I just think about that sometimes. Is like, when did they realistically film that for that to be possible? But I don't know. Just a little thing I thought about. One other thing I want to talk about with this movie is the hired goons in this movie. One is played by John Leguizamo, and the other is played by Robert Patrick, which I think is really interesting because these characters are hired goons. Essentially, they're supposed to be like generic looking like bad guys that you don't really think about. But like one of them's played by the voice of Sid the Sloth. The other one is the T-1000. Like,
yeah, and he gets like a badass like line.
Oh yeah, the
Like,
T-1000. Yeah. Hey buddy, what the fuck do you think I am? A sitting duck. Bam.
And then you get like one of my favorite like action scenes of the movie, with like it kind of comes back with like the old movie, when like the first movie where they kind of like start using everything, kind of like when McClane uses like everything around them, like for example when they use that machine to like get like the gun near him so he can like pick it up. That and like the environment just keeps on falling down like that's like a really like great scene that kind of, in my opinion, kind of like feels like natural, with like a natural extension of like the first movie.
Yeah, it feels like, yeah, you're absolutely right. John McClane is like using the stuff around him. Like, yeah, he's using his gun, but like he is also like trying like anything really. Like he's desperate to like fight these hired goons. I agree. Yeah, no, that is a great scene.
I think like in general that's like why I really like John McClane in these movies, because even though he has like experience from the first movie, like at the end of the day, like he's still like the standard guy. Right?
Yeah,
and it really like it's great like to see him just use everything he's got, both like physically and like mentally, to get through these actions. Like he's not like a John Wick where like he has like a history of like killing people professionally, or like a 007.
Yeah.
It was like, he's a spy. He's got all this cool stuff. Or Austin Powers, where he can go, yeah, baby.
Yeah. He's not a John Wick. He's a John McClane. Yeah.
He's a John McClane. Yeah, that's a good way of phrasing it.
Yeah.
He's like John McClane.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I don't know if I really have that much else to say about it. I feel like this is a very long movie. I feel like these early Die Hard movies are really long. They're like over 2 hours, but like, but they're still, but like even still, like I'm never bored with them. Like even though I was like not really paying attention to this one as much as the first one or even the third one, which we'll get into, like I would still feel like my attention was still held. Like I was still interested in seeing where it was going. Even though this was my third time watching it, like I still like had forgotten some things and I was reminded of others. Like, I don't know. I was still entertained regardless. Like I will not argue this as like a great film, but like I still would recommend it. Like I know
it's still a very fun movie at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And even though it's not, like obviously compared to the first one, like it has elements lacking, like it's still a fun Die Hard movie. You still have like the fun protagonist, you still have like the good like side characters, and all. You still have like the funny moments and like the stunts and all.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still a good movie that I do think is still worth watching.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I would totally like watch it again, and I would totally recommend people check it out. Like, yeah, again, it's not as good, but I think it's still worth watching regardless. But yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else you wanted to say about it before we move on to number 3?
No, I'll be damned if I have to talk about this movie anymore.
Yeah, I know it wasn't like as detailed as like our first discussion, but like I think we still got something out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just like a good testament to like
Yeah.
the quality of like the first movie.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Die Hard 2, pretty good movie. I may be a little biased because I like it a lot, but like I will say, Die Hard 3, Die Hard with a Vengeance. Now, here's something I will
Okay,
absolutely defend.
Okay, the one major criticism I have with this movie.
Yeah.
Why wasn't it not called Die Hardest? They had everything perfect. They had Die Hard, Die Harder. And why did they not do Die Hardest? They had it right in their fingers. They had
I
a
know.
good thing going, but they had to blow it all up.
Yeah, I know. It's the same thing as not calling Army of Darkness Medieval Dead. Like that's like the one thing. Like I love Army of Darkness with all my heart, but like if it was called Medieval Dead, I'd love it just a tiny bit more. Like But yeah, no, I agree. It should have been called Die Hardest. But title aside, Die Hard with a Vengeance. Wow. Like I love this movie a lot.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say like this is my favorite one out of the
Okay.
bunch.
Yeah. I mean, I disagree, but I completely 100% understand because I think this is a really fun movie. Like when I watched it the first time, so like when I watched Die Hard, like when I bought this DVD pack, like I remember I watched Die Hard, then like I watched Die Hard 2 after that. I don't remember how long after. And I was like, this is pretty good, but you know, it's obviously not as good as the first one. But then I watched Die Hard 3 and I'm like, holy shit, this is great. Like this is fun. Like this is a good action movie. But it's Die Hard 3. Like why does nobody talk about this as often as like, you know, the other as like the first Die Hard movie or like any 90s like action movies? Like why is Die Hard 3 like not talked about as much? And I think because it is Die Hard 3, like people just assume it's going to be bad, but it's like, and also like apparently like Rotten Tomatoes has it as like a 56%, and I'm like,
oh, that is horrendous. Nah,
look,
that is a hate crime I've ever seen. One.
Look, I know I don't trust Rotten Tomatoes, and I feel like even giving them like even just mentioning them is giving them credit, like, but like do I have to spell it out? Like every time I bring up Rotten Tomatoes, don't trust it. They have Die Hard 3 at a 56%. Absolutely no fucking way is that true. Like that is not accurate at all. Like
not in the slightest.
Yeah. So Die Hard 3. So this is the movie where like they kind of are just so they bring back John McTiernan, who is the director of the first one. So like, but I feel like even still they are not trying to like in ways they are, but like they're a little more clever with it. They're not trying to like, you know, once again, like the second movie suck the dick of like the first movie, being like, oh, it wasn't the first one so great. Like this one is definitely trying to be its own thing. It does not take place at Christmas. First of all.
Oh my gosh, it doesn't?
Yeah, like
I thought it was meant to be a Christmas movie.
Well, they still make references to Christmas. How they're just like, you know, at one point John McClane's just like, "Oh, did you see that jolly old fat man? I think his name is Saint Nick or something like that." But yeah, no, and then so like so it's not a Christmas movie. It finally takes place in New York. You know, like John McClane is like this, you know, in the first movie, he was the NYPD cop, but like it takes place in LA. And then in the second movie, it takes place in an airport in Washington, D.C. Like finally, we're in New York City.
We're in his home territory.
We're in his home territory. Again, I guess we're just going to forget about the fact that he said he was LAPD because now he's divorced from Holly. Sergeant Powell doesn't show up. Richard Thornburg doesn't show up. Like John McClane is the only character from the first two movies to be in this movie.
Yeah, and I think that's like the one strange thing that's like, even though this is my favorite, I obviously wouldn't consider this one the best one because there's like some elements like as a continuation that's a bit iffy. Like for example, like the fact that like he's once again divorced, well, implied to be like divorced with Holly, and it's like the last two movies, it's kind of like them literally reconnecting back together. Like the second one's like they're literally reconnecting back together from like a long distance. And
yeah.
To be introduced in this third movie is like, he's back at it again. Like, he's back at it again. Like, separated from like from his family again. But
Yeah.
which I guess like realistically it could kind of make sense because they did like have like that because we could just assume okay there's like a few years like afterwards so obviously could have been some kind of like
Yeah.
drama between the two, but like in terms of like movie logic, like it doesn't feel as satisfying.
Yeah, you definitely feel cheated. You're just like, oh, like I guess Holly and him were never meant to be. But like I still feel like the movie is clever about it. Like
Yeah, because they don't completely like shaft her out of the image of the picture because like at like towards like the end of the movie, you know, there's still like him
Yeah.
like giving her like a phone call at the end of the movie, like the last like the final shot that goes into the credits, it's him doing a phone call.
yeah. Again,
To speak with Holly.
it's still retconned in 4 and 5, but we don't have to talk about those yet. But yeah, no, like I still really like what this movie does. Like it's still John McClane having a bad day where like he's just called to action because he's the only one who can. But it makes a little more sense in here because, you know, in the second one it was kind of weird how like there's a scene where like he like follows the goons in the airport and you're just like realistically would he follow them, but like semantics.
He just happens to be there.
Yeah,
it's fine. Like
whereas
they're very lucky that he was there.
yeah,
like,
whereas here like the main villain Simon like actually like makes like John McClane part of his plan. Like you know,
and he and like Simon has like a legitimate connection to it by being the brother of like Hans.
Yeah. Simon is the brother of Hans. So Simon is played by Jeremy Irons, who is not as good as Alan Rickman, but it's Jeremy Irons. Like the dude has some street cred when it comes to playing villains. Like this came out the year after The Lion King, so like clearly like he still has like personality, way more than like you know. Stuart, the main villain of the last movie. Yeah.
Stuart, you little idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I like how he does kind of frame his antics from like the perspective of like being like Simon says, like, oh, he's like making it a game. Like that's so sociopathic. Again, something I'm sure like villains in other movies have like tried to copy, but like I feel like this movie does it great. Like it does it a little better.
And I'm so glad, like, with like, despite like with him being his brother, like one concern here and there is like, oh, are they gonna make him just like a carbon copy of like him personality and everything? But no, they actually do bits that make him a bit distinguished because like you initially think like, oh, he's a bit of a revenge goal, which you initially think it is. He's a lot more playful than Hans because like, again with the Simon Says games, like he literally, I guess we may as well jump into it because I can't hold myself. He literally makes John McClane wear a certain no word.
Well, let's talk about that. So like the very within the first 10 minutes of Die Hard 3, you see John McClane put on a sign, and then like so then we're introduced to the other main character of the movie, that being Zeus Carver, played by Samuel motherfucking Jackson. And and so like they're just and so like you know like these like these two boys, I don't think they're his sons. They're like random children who are from his neighborhood.
They're like his. I thought they were kind of like his nephews.
Nephews, maybe. I don't entirely remember. That sounds very likely. But like, yeah, they're like almost skipping school. He's like, hey, go to school, go get an education, and then like they walk away, and they're like, oh yeah, because they say uncle, so they are his nephews. He's like, uncle, you're gonna want to see this. There's a white guy in the street, and he's like, I've seen him. And he's like, not this one, and he walks out.
This one.
And John McClane, in nothing but boxer shorts and shoes, has a sign, has like the like a folding sign like on him, and it says, I hate the gamer word.
The gamer word.
So you know the one.
Those nincompoops.
Yeah, you know the word we're talking about.
Yeah.
Again, this is the first. This is the first. This is the first 10 minutes of the movie. Like, it's only gonna get crazy. It's only gonna get more crazy. Yeah.
And I think that's why like this why ended up like becoming my favorite, because not because of that scene in particular, what it is like, but as a whole.
Yeah,
like,
but what that scene,
how they're going crazy.
what that scene represents exactly.
Yeah, because like you get like this like it's a great like hook to there. You can see like buildings explode. Like it's like a lot of a grander like threat they're doing. It's not just in like an isolated location anymore.
Hmm.
It's like it's like a full city-wide like event now, which is like a natural progression from like the last two movies, which I really
Yes.
appreciate.
Yes. Oh yeah, no, this is like a this is very much, it's very similar to the first two movies where it's like it's using a location, like it's all takes place in one location, but that one location is the entirety of New York City. So like yeah, it's like a playground. Like so like, you know, we start off in Harlem with the sign, and like you're just like, where is this going? Like so
Yeah.
because John McClane is doing it because Simon was just like, get this cop John McClane, make him wear the sign in the middle of Harlem. And so then John McClane is like walking around with this sign, which we have to mention. So there's two different versions of the sign. There's the one where
Is it this the gamer word?
so there's the one with the gamer word, but like that wasn't what it actually said. So like there's two different versions of the sign. So in the TV version it says I hate everybody, and like that he actually wore when they were filming in Harlem, whereas like the one with the gamer word has nothing on it, but then the sign, what it says on the sign was added in post-production digitally, which blew my mind. I did not know it was a digital effect. I was just like, holy shit, like that's insane.
Yeah. I
But
think we're like in the middle of like a watch party of like the fifth movie, which which is a really strange fan movie, by the way.
yeah.
And and like the majority of the time we were like talking about like the sign and all that, and then you brought then like a quick research. It's like, oh, that was like done in a that was like a good like a visual effect, and like you just could not tell.
Yeah, no, I did not tell. I was just like, holy shit. Like, had I not figured it out, like, I could have gone the rest of my life thinking they actually wrote it out and filmed that scene in Harlem. Like, but yeah, no, like, but that just shows you just like how good of an effect it was. But like, just how smart these filmmakers are. They're just like, all right, we're not actually gonna make Bruce Willis wear the actual sign in public. Like, it's
I
just
mean,
an effect.
they couldn't have like, the perfect excuse, you know. It's like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
don't worry, it's just for the film. We
yeah,
have Samuel Jackson. He gave us the
yeah,
pass. It's all right.
yeah.
He wrote it down himself. He gave
Yeah.
the signature and everything.
But they were
But
smart about it. Yes.
yeah, they actually knew like, oh yeah, if we actually wore this during production, yeah, it might not look good.
No, it
We
would
should
not.
probably do something about it.
Which sucks because like if that was an actual prop like somewhere in like the 20th century lot somewhere, but like it doesn't exist because it was a digital effect.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
all for the
Unfortunately,
better.
it can't be in the museum
No.
next to the other tank top.
No, it can't be. That's right. Yeah, just a quick thing. Yeah, the tank top that Bruce Willis wore throughout filming Die Hard is in the Smithsonian. Like the tank top that started off as white and then it got covered in like vent dust and fake blood and dirt and grime. Yeah, it's in the Smithsonian. Good. But so an aspect I really like about this movie is the chemistry between Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis. Because these are like two very different characters, but they have to work together.
Yeah.
And you think that'd be like, oh, the white guy and the black guy working together in a buddy cop movie. But like, it's still fresh because John McClane is the only cop. Like, Zeus is just a normal citizen. He's just a normal guy. Like, he's an even more normal guy
like,
than Bruce Willis. Yeah, the movie's very self-aware about it.
Like there's like literally a scene where like when it's like Samuel Jackson was like he's having his rant and and then like McClane is like, I can cut over like the race stuff, and like it makes sense because like he's worked with like other black people beforehand in the last two movies.
Mm-hmm.
So while he kind of still plays with that kind of like that trope, it's very much self-aware about it, and it's not as if like it's like there's still some sense of agency to him.
Yeah,
like because like of John's experience.
Yeah, and again, Zeus is just like, I don't have to be here. I can just walk away. But like then, as the movie progresses, then he has to be, more, he has to like help out because then they reveal like, oh, Simon hit a bomb in one of the schools, and the one school that his nephews go to might have the bomb. Like,
Oh, whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, Chester A. Arthur.
Yeah.
Now thanks to this movie, I'll forever know that Chester A. Arthur was the 21st president.
One of the only few times they'll be educated in American history.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but like I just love the chemistry between Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson, which is funny because like they've been in other movies together. Like they were in Unbreakable, another movie we've talked about on the podcast. But like in that movie, they had completely different kind of chemistry because Samuel L. Jackson was Elijah, this like really broken down person, and Bruce Willis is like this indestructible person, and like I don't know, and it's filmed by M. Night Shyamalan, so like those scenes were like a lot slower, a lot more methodical, but like here it's a lot crazier, a lot more intense. It's in New York where like everything's like shit's just like keeps on moving, like nothing ever stops. So like, but like still, even within these two actors in two completely different movies still have amazing chemistry between each other because it's just like their characters are so interesting, and just having them interact in like every scene is just it's so much fun.
Yeah, I could tell like you mentioned before, like since like they like worked together before, like I'm not sure if this is like their first time working together or not, but like you can tell like they like the actors themselves, they have like chemistry with each other, like definitely by like the connection that they bring out in their performances.
Yeah, and again, like them just running around New York City, it's a little weird how they're just like they can go from different New York locations one after the other. You're just like, do you not understand like how trafficy it gets in New York? Like you would be.
I mean, that's kind of the weird thing because they kind of point that out in one scene where it's like, oh, you have to like drive there and all that. I have to. I'll call the ambulance to get to like to prevent the bombing on the train. Which, by the way, like when that happens, like great scene.
Yeah. So yeah. Oh, you're absolutely right. Yeah, John uses like his skills as a cop to his advantage. How he's just like, I got an officer down, and like you get like an ambulance running through, and then he's like, oh, let me follow the ambulance so I can get through this traffic.
But then they kind of like don't follow along with that for the rest of the movie, which I don't mind too much. Because, well, because like, me not being American, I could just use the excuse like, oh, that's probably how like that's like anyway.
Yeah. Well, so like I feel like at the beginning they definitely take advantage of the city setting, like how they're just like, oh, it's so trafficy, and then like he drives through Central Park. Literally through Central Park, like he's just like driving through like the grass. He's like honking his horn, like being like, "Move out of the way, people! Like move!" Like that's a great scene. And then they finally get to like the train station because like, and so they separate at one point because like Zeus takes the cab.
They do like the phone call.
Yeah, they do the phone call, and like, but John's not there, man. And so then they but John finds the bomb in like that like weird telephone box in the subway, and he takes it, he throws it out the back, and then like then the train like it ignites it, detonates it, and like it explodes and in the subway station, and then you see like the back car like kind of like move
they bend like almost like bend towards and while that's like happening, Zeus is being like held at gunpoint by like another cop because he didn't pay to use public transport. I can't believe him.
The racist white cop is just like, put your hands up. He's like, look, man, either shoot me or don't. But then even though that man was about to shoot Zeus, he still helps the white cop by being like, move out of the way, dude. Like that just shows you how much of a nice guy deep down Zeus is. Like, but again, because he's a normal person, like whether like he's not a skilled cop like John. Like I think that's really interesting that like in the first movie you see John as like this normal guy, but then in this movie the normal guy role is filled in by Zeus. Like John is a little more experienced. He's still relatively a normal guy, but like also, John McClane in this movie surfs on a dump truck. So like, and he's fought people on a plane. Like John McClane is not really the normal guy anymore. He still acts like the normal guy, but he's a little more action movie-y.
He's kind of before like the action hero legend at this point, because like obviously everyone at that point would obviously know what Die Hard is.
Yeah, exactly. Not to say that like that's a bad thing. I love John McClane surfing on a dump truck like in the tunnels of New York. That's a great scene.
Yeah, that's actually like one of like the few notes I wrote down because I've been like writing notes for these movies, and all I put was like surfer dude is like, oh yeah, that's the John McClane dump truck surfing scene when they like flood the tunnel.
Yeah, it's a great scene.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I will say like I guess the one thing I've kind of noticed throughout these movies is like there's always some sort of twist that kind of do with the villain. Not like
mm,
exactly like it's not always exactly with the twist villain, but it's more so with like kind of like with their motives in a sense.
yeah, no,
So
this is
in the
definitely a twist motive kind of movie.
yeah, because in the first movie, like it wasn't really much of a twist, but for the characters, it kind of was. Where, like where like the villains in that group, they're purely in it for the money. They're like robbers, but like everyone thinks they're terrorists, and they
Yeah.
use that fact as like their advantage. And then like the last movie, the second one, they kind of do more literal twist villains in that. And
Hmm.
then in this movie, they kind of do a twist like, oh, he's not actually out it for revenge. It's just one massive high scheme, which is uh the one like a little bit of levity that I guess why it's called Die Hard with a Vengeance, because it's kind of like a twist on that fact, because like, oh, he's
Mm.
not actually getting Simon is not getting a vengeance on John. He's just using that as like a cover up for what's actually going on.
Which I think is really interesting. Like in any other, like I feel like in a lot of modern sequels, they want to like make as many references to the first one as possible to like really connect it. And you're thinking like, okay, like this is how it connects to like the first movie is like, oh, the brother of the villain of the first movie is here for revenge. But then it's like, no, like they really flip that idea on its head. They're like, nope, he's just in it. He's just like robbing the Federal Reserve in Wall Street.
Yeah.
But he just so happens to get sort of revenge on McClane. He's just like, oh, I can do both. I can rob this place and kill the guy that killed my brother. Like, he
But even then, like he still like toys around with him, like even after like the audience knows about like that fact, he still like does the
absolutely.
phone call shtick and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's what I love about this movie is like, yeah, it's a lot more clever than you would think like a sequel like this to the first movie would be. Um, and you gotta respect it for that, man. Like, like
Yeah,
you never see that, or you rarely ever see that. Like not to say that like every sequel does this, like, but a lot of sequels do that where they want to
yeah,
really connect it to the first movie, and they do it in such lame ways. Whereas I feel like this movie kind of makes fun of that even before it became a bit of a trope, you know?
yeah. Which is such an interesting fact that like, oh, that despite like all these action movies that's come on ahead now and that's kind of like played with that trope, it's so fascinating like to see like whenever like any old movie like does older movie does like a trope you think is going to happen then subverts it. That's
Yeah.
always like such a fascinating aspect, and it's like, oh no, this is just not just like another movie. Like it kind of gives itself like a proper identity and like confidence of like in its storytelling.
Maybe that's why this movie like at first wasn't really seen as anything that great. Like I'm sure this was like a success at the box office and all, but like maybe critically like people were just like, what is this? But like with us looking at it from, us in the future, like
I
look
like, yeah,
a modern
like a
like
modern day perspective.
modern day perspective and seeing how terrible, like not even just like the Die Hard sequels got, because they got terrible, but like how terrible other sequels got. Like, you know, I don't know, like I feel like us looking back, like we get a little we can appreciate it more, I feel like.
Yeah,
I feel like we could
and can
appreciate this movie more now than people could back in 1995.
yeah, we can actually like learn from it now, given our
Yeah.
like current perspective,
Yeah,
which is
this is how
always
you
like
do a sequel to something like Die Hard. Is Die Hard
yeah,
with a
which is
Vengeance.
yeah, because it's always like such like a fascinating aspect when it comes to um movies like that, which is always like a good like important reason why like to have like movies preserved in general.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's fascinating, this movie. It's just so much fun, and it's so intense. Every second is just like they're moving. Again, because it takes place in New York, which is like, the city that never sleeps. Even though this takes place during the day, like I don't know, just like it's just nonstop action, but like in a
Yeah.
good way. Like,
Yeah, like
you're
one like
exhausted, but in a
example.
in a good way by the end.
Yeah, Yeah, for example, when they like revealed like after the twist is just in it for the money, and you see like these like massive trucks, and you see like you really get like the if you think like the bombs were bad enough, you realize like all like the gear and like truly the amount of people that are working under this operation. Like, oh gosh, this is like a massive serious like
Yeah.
event that's going on,
Well, that's the interesting
and it
thing
really
is like this is like when it's revealed these dump trucks are like starting to come in. Like when Simon is like actually seen for the first time, a good 20 minutes. Like John McClane is not on screen. Like it's a good 20 minutes of just like Simon and his hired goons like working on like robbing this Federal Reserve, like going through every little step of the way. But like you're still intrigued. You're just like, oh, what's gonna happen next? Like you don't need John McClane in every scene. Like you can just watch like 20 minutes of just like the villains like doing their thing. You're just like, oh, this is actually really intriguing. Like this is really engaging me.
yeah, because like you're like getting introduced about the reality of the situation. You're really like getting invested in like in this like massive operation they're carrying out,
Yeah.
and it's like such like a fascinating way. Like once again, like with a modern perspective nowadays, that like what like modern like what anyone I think anyone can learn from like making a movie, an action movie now, and looking back to this. It's just such a fascinating aspect to look back upon.
Yeah. And I like, again, similar to the first movie, there's a lot of little details in this movie. So, like, you have, like, the scene where, like, Zeus brings, like, the bomb. Because, like, there's, like, a bomb they find in Central Park, the two of them. And he, like, brings it to, like, some of the hired goons who are, like, disguised as cops. And, like, there's these German guys, like, putting on American accents. They're just like, oh, Scheiße, here comes Zeus. He's just like, hi there, sir. How are you doing today? And then he's just like,
hello everybody, I am a cop.
yeah. And Zeus is just like, officer, here, we found this bomb in Central Park. And immediately the guy's just like, okay, thank you. And like walks away. And Zeus is immediately like, huh, a New York cop just told me thank you and walked away. Me, an African American. Wait a minute. Like something's wrong here. Yeah.
Who was really in Harlem?
Yeah. Or like that one German guy who's just like that one German guy who like shoots like that one cop and like takes his badge. And like that one cop early on in the movie is just like,
oh yeah, he mentioned the lottery number.
He mentioned
the
lottery
type. Lottery numbers.
Yeah, he's just like, yeah, I always use my badge number 6991, and they're just like, yeah, like every cop in New York uses their badge numbers, their lottery numbers. And so then later,
like there's like tense elevator scene,
and then tense elevator scene,
and like the people who are pretending to be the cops in the reserve.
Yeah, and he sees the big German guy with like, you think he's like, oh, he's just a detective from a different precinct, but then he looks at the badge number, it's like 6991, and he's just like, wait a minute, like,
yeah.
Oh, it's a great scene. Oh, it's so good, and he's just like,
so good.
Hey, did you guys see the lottery? Here are my numbers. Shoots them all. Like, yeah, oh, great scene.
Yeah, I will say that does apply to like some of the jokes as well, because I'm pretty sure there's like a scene early in the movie, like back at like that bomb scene where like they initially defused the bombs. Like it's like, oh, don't leave that there. Like some kid could come along.
Yeah.
And like when the villains kind of like have it, it's like, oh, don't leave it there. Like some kid would come along.
Yeah, some kid would come along. Yeah, that's great.
Comes back.
Oh, yeah. That's funny.
And it kind of like does like what like a little bit of like what the first movie did with its villains, like not obviously not to like the same extent of like characterizing them, but it still like give these villains like a bit of like that grounded character.
Yeah, you have these like German characters, just like these German like hired goons like trying to fit in New York City, and they're just like using these like awful American accents, but like it's just really fascinating to see. It's really funny. It leads to some entertaining scenes, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's also
anything
I would also say there's like the scene with like the kids. Like you think like, oh, the dumb kids, they're staying back, like even though they were told to, like they're doing a fire drill, but they stayed in the classroom to play cards. But like that still adds some tension, because one, absolutely a kid in this situation would just be like, all right, something's afoot. Like I'm not gonna listen to my teachers telling me to go a place.
Yeah, and also like plays a well as built earlier, because like earlier in the movie, like they got this radio from some guy, and like Zeus is telling them, "Oh no, put that back. He probably stole it." And then they kind of suspecting like, and then they comes back in this scene. It's like, "Oh, do you think these cops are like trying to look for us because we took that radio that could have been stolen?"
That's true too. Yeah,
did they?
Yeah. Did somebody squeal on us? Yeah, like it's very natural. Like again, first movie. Like, it's frustrating, but like in a natural way that you understand. Like that just shows you how good the character writing in this movie is. Absolutely. Yeah, no, and then you think like, oh, they're going to blow up a school full of children, but nope. It was a twist. The bomb wasn't at the school. The bomb was on the boat that that John and Zeus get on. Which oh, by the way,
he played a prank.
The way they like get on the boat, they like use that like that like rope from like that truck, and they're just like going down, and then like the truck falls off the bridge, and like that like when I say rope I mean
like
steel,
like a guy.
Yeah, it like completely slices a guy in half, which it doesn't show anything. It shows like a split second of him slicing in half, and then they're just like, here, you grab his legs,
dragging like the arms.
That was funny, but they don't show anything, but it's heavily implied. But like it's done so in a tasteful way. Like, yes, me and my
in the humorous way as well.
Me and my sick fuck way. Like, I would have liked to have seen the body, but like I think what they do is still funny and entertaining.
Yeah, like I think like the fact that like they show us the small clips, even though it's from like a distance, like of him being decapitated.
Yeah,
it's like that caught me off guard. It's like, oh crap, that.
Oh
happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that just happened.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, better grab the arms. You get the legs.
Yeah, exactly. And then then at the end, it's just like, oh, all this gold that Simon stole, it's actually not on the boat. He didn't. Not only did he double cross Zeus and John, like he double crossed like one of his own guys.
Yeah.
Which is really fascinating. Which then leads, so like then the boat explodes, and you think, oh, he got away. I guess I'm just gonna go call Holly.
He got away.
But the aspirin that he was given. So the whole movie, John McClane is like going like, I have such a hangover, but like he still has to deal with this Simon guy. And like at the end, before like Simon leaves him, he's just like, hey man, you have any aspirin? And Simon's just like, all right, you're about to die. Whatever. I'll just give you the aspirin. But like that aspirin bottle is the one thing that gets John to discover where Simon's at, and it's
whoops,
and it leads to, so apparently there's an alternate ending where like he actually finds Simon on like Christmas Day, and like they have like a bit of a back and forth as just the two of them, but like I guess the studio didn't think that was as exciting, so like they kind of reshot it.
Like a big action scene.
So we get a helicopter chase scene at the end where like they find Simon and his hired goons like on the border of Canada, like, and so then that's like the final battle is like them, like, and again, this is like the final battle after like so many fucking action scenes. Like this movie's jam packed to like the last 5 minutes of just like action. Like that just shows you like how intense this movie is just like it is the longest Die Hard movie thus far.
Yeah, I will say that's kind of like a little gripe that I have, where like even though like it's clear that they did like the setup thing again with him getting the aspirin giving the location, like it is like it's clear that like they wanted to wrap up the movie with that last bit, and it does feel like a little bit rushed. I will say. Yeah,
because again, this is like the reshoot was like them like going into like having the helicopter chase and like them finding them in Canada, so like. It does feel a bit rushed, but I still think it's kind of okay. Like, I still think it's fun enough for what it is.
I mean, he says the yippee-ki-yay line.
That's the scene. This is this one part where he says yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, when he shoots the sparks and the helicopter explodes. Yeah, it's a great scene.
And it actually has like a cool callback to the first movie where he only has like a few bullets left.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's. Yeah. These movies, you like, yes, the yippee-ki-yay motherfucker is like a bit of a running thing, and you think like, oh, it's gonna get old, but like I feel like each one of these early Die Hards uses the line cleverly.
Yeah, and they know how to use it.
Exactly.
When to use it as well. Because usually with the exception of like the first one, where they introduce it earlier and then play it back at the end. Like they save like the sequels, they save it for like the big climactic moment.
Exactly. Yeah, they are. Yeah. They use it cleverly. Just like I just really like this movie, man. Like, even though I have a bit of a story, I went I mentioned this in my review of this recently, but like when I first watched this movie, again, it was 2016, and I was like late 2016, had to be, and like they make a joke about Donald Trump because there's that scene where like it's like a phone operator facility, and like this one woman's just
and
like
they mentioned like Trump and Hillary.
well, so she, like this woman goes up to her boss and she's just like, half of New York's like calling us, and he's like, yeah, we're getting a bunch of calls now because the cops are busy, and she's like, and I'm marrying Donald Trump, and I'm just like, what? Like in 2016, I was like, what? Oh, right. He was famous in the 90s, of course. Yeah. But then later on, there's a scene where like they're driving in New York and like some woman like cuts him off, and John McClane goes, who's this woman think she is? Hillary Clinton? And again, in 2016, I was just like, what? What? Like that just blew my mind that not only did we get a Trump and Hillary joke in a movie, we got it from 1995. Like again,
that's so weird.
Again, realistically, both of those people were famous icons in the 90s. So it makes sense that they would make jokes at their expense. It's just from our 2016 perspective, we didn't realize that having them both in the same movie was also funny in and of itself. Like again,
they predicted 2016.
Again, this movie can be appreciated more now than it was in 1995. Like,
yeah, it's so like funny when they like caught me off guard. Like, wait a minute, when was this movie made? Like,
yeah, in the 90s. Again, I love this movie. Like, I really do. I feel like more people need to experience it. Whether or not whether or not it'll be like you, where like you love it more than the first one, I don't know. But I still feel like it's worth watching. Like, even though it's only my second favorite Die Hard film, I still highly recommend it. Like, the fact that a sequel to Die Hard is this good is nothing short of a miracle for me.
Yeah, and like especially like with like how like, everyone's like opinions on like the second one, you think like, oh, the third one's gonna like dip like lower.
Yeah,
no, it really holds up, and like I think the way that and they tell the to why I really like it, because like I think more so than the second one, they really do like really utilize it as a sequel where it's just not just one building, but it's a one big wide location, and then we just go like risk it with like an actual grander set pieces. We're more so in the second one where they kind of like share same familiar elements with the first one. I think that's why I kind of really like this one.
It's not trying to be a Member Berry sequel. In fact, the one time it's trying to be a Member Berry sequel, it kind of flips that on its head. Like, this is a very clever sequel, and I'm shocked not many people like celebrate it as like one of the better sequels out there. Again, maybe that stupid fucking Rotten Tomatoes percentage is like really throwing people off. Like, please, I beg of you people, please just watch this movie.
Yeah, they reference funny Star Wars, man. It's all Rotten Tomatoes' fault.
Yeah. They're jealous. They're holding me back.
We recognize you as a Die Hard movie, but we do not give you the rank of a good score.
This is outrageous. It's unfair.
It's unfair.
Oh, but is there anything else we have to say?
I will say there's like this one bit we like the back with the betrayal bit.
Okay.
There's one bit. There's one little like unintentionally funny bit where like, okay, so they done the betrayal. The villains are back celebrating, and then one of the dudes celebrate to our fallen comrades, and then like the lady and Cyber give a stare at each other. And initially I thought like, ooh, are they gonna like one of them going to perpetrate each other, and they go to the same room, and then they go to the same room and just realize, oh, I know, they're just horny.
They're
just making it out. Yeah. And then I really like how like McClane just like rocks up with a helicopter and shunts it directly through their window.
Yeah.
They're trying to get it started, and like they get caught in that exact moment.
Oh yeah, no, just so many good scenes, so many good lines. Again, not as good as the first one, but like still worth watching. Like I'm not to say that nobody talks about this, because again, this movie has people rating it on Letterboxd. It has a banner on Letterboxd, so that just shows you that like it's enough people know about it. I feel like, you know, it deserves a little more respect than what it's been dealt. Like, I think it genuinely is not only just a great Die Hard sequel, it's a genuinely great action movie all on its own. Like, you could watch this on its own and get so much
Yeah.
out of it still.
Yeah, exactly. Like, even though, like, obviously I would recommend definitely watch at least the first one. Like,
Yeah.
I still would give this like a great watch.
Well, I'd recommend all three because, well, again, I have it on this Die Hard trilogy DVD box set. So I guess we can talk a little bit about that. Like, these, like I said, I found this at like a Newberry Comics, just being like, oh, it's the only Die Hard thing I can find. Let me get it. But I'm glad I have it because then I was able to experience Die Hards 2 and 3. And I think this is a really fascinating box set. So it came out in, I believe, 2006. From the copyright I can figure out on the DVDs themselves, it says like 2006. So this was a year before Live Free or Die Hard. So like realistically, yes, the box set was just like, oh, own the first 3 Die Hards as like the complete trilogy. And it's like, oh, that's cool. But yeah, no, I think the DVDs are very thin. And again, they are DVD quality. Which, you know, DVD quality I know is not the best. Like, you know, people say like 4K and Blu-rays are a lot better, and they are, but like, you know, if a DVD is like cool enough, I will keep it, you know, because like I still feel like there's some merit to owning stuff on DVD. Like I still like
Oh, absolutely.
I've done many episodes on DVDs, and like, you know, even though like I did like a Pulp Fiction episode, and like, you know, Pulp Fiction I could realistically have on 4K, but like I still have it on this collector's edition DVD because the collector's edition is so cool that like I still want to keep it. Because you know that like it has so much like stuff to it. I still have Memento on DVD because the DVD special edition of Memento is so cool. Like, and same thing with here. Like, yeah, it's a bit simplistic, but just the fact that like all 3 movies are in this like nice like box, and just like, yeah, they're not as much like special features, but like I don't need special features. Like I just need the movie. And so that's just what I get out of this DVD trilogy. I love this so much. And like I said, like I think before we started recording, I said in the pre-show, like, you know, a lot of episodes I've been doing recently have been on Blu-rays and DVDs that like I've kind of bought recently or within like the past year, couple of years. Whereas like here, this thing's been in my collection for like many years. Like this was like 7 years ago. Like I'm pretty sure 2016 was the year I bought this. So like this thing has been here for a while. So I think it's good that like I have an opportunity to talk about something that's been in the collection for a while now, because like, you know, this thing is like, it's definitely a staple of my collection. Long before I decided to make the podcast. So I'm glad I can, you know, make an episode on this trilogy box set.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like a little bit similar, but less so, because like I guess we'll talk about it like once we finish talking about the next fan film.
Well,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, and like I have and like the one I have is also on DVD, but like comes like in like this cool kind of like box set about it.
Nice.
And obviously and I'm assuming like my parents would have got it when I was like a dumb goo goo gaga baby sort of like thing. Yeah, it's pretty cool to have, and I'm glad like even if it's on DVD, like I actually watch like the majority of my movies I watch are on DVD. Like it's still great that I have like a unique kind of like package to like get introduced to finally watch these classics that
Yeah.
everyone has really has really gotten to see.
Yeah, well, I mean, you being in Australia, like recently, like they said Disney's not doing like physical media for you guys anymore, which sucks. Like that just sucks. Like,
Amazing. Yeah. Now I have to think about, oh my gosh, how am I going to import this random DVD that's not gonna Like fit with the region. I better
Yeah.
buy a 4K one. I better save up and buy a 4K
Oh yeah.
DVD. That's
I
gonna be great.
I highly
Yay!
recommend 4K players. Because 4Ks are region free, so like a 4K player will just play any disc. Like I have a 4K player and like I can play these DVDs even though it's a 4K player. I can play these DVDs on there. Like so it's highly recommended. Yes, it's expensive. So like save up, man. Like and
Yeah.
this goes out to like
I'll
all the
be free
listeners.
someday.
But I guess we can get into it. So I would have liked to have just ended it at Die Hard 3 because that's basically when the good movies stop in this series. But they made another one. They made two more actually. So much like the Indiana Jones
They
series,
did?
they made a great trilogy. They made a fourth one that not many people like, and then they made a fifth one which was just awful. So let's talk about the fourth one that, well, it's interesting because I don't really hear many people talk about this one positively, and yet this one has a higher Rotten Tomatoes score than Die Hard with a Vengeance. So like,
Again, Rotten Tomatoes.
yeah,
Whoop-de-doo.
yeah, Rotten Tomatoes, whoop de doo.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Die Hard 4, or us Americans call it Live Free or Die Hard, but you Australians call it Die Hard 4.0, right?
Oh, that's so fun. Yeah, I think I'm actually curious if it's like that in other countries because on like the because I'm holding like the DVD right now. It's like Die Hard 4.0, and it's like the cover of him and like the car crashing into the helicopter.
Okay,
And
I changed that to my poster on Letterbox because, well, one, I think it's funny that it's calls it Die Hard 4.0, but like also, well, we'll get to the cop car exploding the helicopter, I guess, later on. But yeah, I think that's so
yeah,
funny. They just call it Die Hard 4.0.
yeah. I was like really surprised when you told me like, oh, there's five of these. Like, oh no, because I thought like I didn't know there was called like Live Free and Die Hard. I thought it was like, oh, they continue with the changing the naming scheme. Why call it Die Hard 4.0? Would he call it Die Hard Esther?
Die Hard
It would
Esther.
it would have been amazing. Come
Yeah,
on.
yeah. But yeah, so it's called Live Free or Die Hard. I can kind of see why, because so this is a movie again. Much like the second movie, it takes place in D.C. for a little bit, but it's years later, 2007 to be exact, and John McClane is bald Bruce Willis. Now he's completely bald.
And he sounds like Mike Ehrmantraut from Breaking Bad. Gotta
He
love it.
is a lot older than he was in 1995. Which, uh, again, like, I get it. Like action stars, they get old. They're human. Like that's the point. But like much like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, like you know, we don't want to see old man Bruce Willis or old man Harrison Ford like limping around being like, "No, guys, really, I'm still cool." It's just like, dude, like give it a rest. Like, because not to say that this is like the worst example of old man Willis. We'll get to that. Like there are
Eventually.
I'll give this movie just a minuscule amount of credit. There are some cool scenes in this movie.
Yeah.
There's
And I'll give it like a slight credit. It's not framed terribly.
yeah.
It's actually all right. That's like the high, all right is the bar. Is like the goal we're reaching for now. But
Yeah. Well, cuz like we were saying, there's that scene where like the cop car, so like Bruce Willis is like driving through this tunnel and like there's a helicopter at the end of it. So like he like drives this cop car and then he like jumps out of it and it like launches into this helicopter cuz it like realistically it would just crash into the toll booth, but like for whatever reason they were just like no, it's a ramp. So like they have the cop car like launch from this toll booth into the helicopter. It's a great scene. Like they actually blow up a cop car in a helicopter. It looks really cool. Um and that's like
and
the
there are
highlight of the
some
movie
actual
for me.
yeah, and I will give credit. There are actually some cool like conceptual set pieces that are
Mm.
that provide a cool concept for action, and it's framed in an all right way where I'm not bothered by it. You know,
Well,
like
there's that
it's
there's that scene where he drives a car and he hits that woman and they're driving through all those walls and they go into like the elevator and like the woman's still alive for some reason. Like that's when the movie like is so baffling, but like in an entertaining way. Like I'm just like, okay, I'm kind of into this. Like this is kind of funny. And then like the cop car, not the cop car, like the truck like falls down the elevator, crashes and
and then it just
explodes.
like explodes. And I was honestly expecting the ladies to come back
Yeah,
again.
considering she just
like
drove through like 20 walls, like
yeah.
yeah, and then like the car explodes, you think like she just walks
Uh,
out of it like I'm okay. Like if the movie went
uh,
that far, I probably would have liked it a lot more.
yeah, yeah. I was expecting it to come out like a T like T1000
Yeah,
just
like a
like coming up from
T1000
the
moment.
flames.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, these movies did have Robert
Speak.
Patrick, so
Yeah. Well, speaking of Terminator, I guess we may as well like try to like talk about it from the beginning, how it starts. I guess.
oh
Um.
yeah, the Terminator statue in Justin Long's house. It like
Yeah.
falls
Uh,
over, presses a button, and like C4 explodes his apartment. Yeah.
Yeah, but before that, we have to deal with like probably one of the weakest introductions to an action movie. So you get like this generic like hacker like montage with like
Oh
whatever
yeah.
good guy organization it is. Like, oh, the thingamabob did the bobbity boop. Oh, we had to do the thingamajimmy somehow.
Yeah.
Ah, cold Bruce Willis or something like that. And
Yeah.
then it just cuts to like this random girl and this dude like kind of making out. They're like kissing real hard, so you think like, oh, they're gonna do it, and then before they do it, the girl's like, nah, and then the dude's like, what do you mean, nah? And then this is how our hero, John McClane, is introduced. It just walks in and says, "Hey, daughter, stop making out,
Yeah.
please."
And she calls him
Yeah,
John, you know, because like she doesn't
yeah,
respect him as a father,
yeah,
so she calls him by his name,
yeah,
which is a. I feel like that would be a really cool aspect because, like, you know, the son does that in the next movie. Like, it's a. I feel like that should be like that should be hitting a lot harder, but the movies are
yeah.
not very good at framing that, so it doesn't really
Yeah,
mean anything.
because one we don't even know if it's like his daughter until like he just rocks up and says, "Hey, don't do that."
Yeah,
And two, it's been a wide gap like since like the first like since like between like the third one and like the second one in like within in universe.
yeah,
So so you don't really get like that strong impact of like oh him calling him only just John like what they could have done, like I don't think this would have made the movie any better, but they could have done like a maybe instead of like the boring like whatever intro they did do, they could have done like maybe like a flashback moment. It's like, oh, maybe it's like when she was a little kid and with John and all that, and then they cut to like that scene that could have been more impactful. But
hmm
of course, this is not a good movie.
no. Well, that's
So
the thing is like
it's not allowed to do that.
I feel like now I know like I feel like it's weird because like these sequels are generic, but like they really don't take advantage of bringing back past characters, which I kind of respect. But at the same time, I feel like these are the movies you would want to bring back Sergeant Powell and Holly, and like
Yeah.
have them play a bigger role in these movies, but they
Like if you
don't.
gotta bring back like his children for like the both of these movies because like these two movies bring out these children and like since like a crucial part of his character is like how much he loves his family, you think they like utilize that a lot more and like
Right.
but they really don't like
A lot of
I'm
the
pretty sure like
a lot of the interesting
us
stuff is done off screen. Like Lucy and again in the later movie Jack really don't like him and you're just like, "Okay, why?" Like I guess they just want you to be like, "Oh, cuz John McClane is an asshole." But it's like, "Okay, but he's an asshole but played up for comedic parts." Like you need to
yeah, he's
explain
only
why
an
he's not.
asshole when he's being a smart aleck. It's not
Yeah.
because he's a like inherently like an evil dude. Like he's always
Yeah.
like been trying to do his job, which is kind of the whole kerfuffle why they're divorced in the first place. It's not like he wanted to abandon them.
Right. So like can we please explain like not explain, just like I don't know, just we need something more than nothing, you know? Like, like we need an explanation as to why his children like resent him, and like just saying like, oh, because John McClane's an asshole is not enough. Like, we don't see them interact until this movie, and you're just like, okay, again, all the interesting stuff was done off screen. Like, we kind of needed
Yeah,
that. We kind of needed that
yeah.
build up.
And the significance was also done off screen because at one point in the movie, whoops, the daughter is captured. We don't see how, but she
I
just happens to be captured.
Yeah, wasn't she like captured in an elevator or something? Like
Is it the same elevator that that lady died
no,
in? Because
no.
that would have been funny.
Yeah, it would have been funny. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like I think some things are explained. We were just talking over them in the VC chat. I mean, can you blame us? Like but that's the thing is like we were so bored that like we had to make jokes because like that's the thing with this movie. Whether or not it explains things, it doesn't do so in an engaging way. Like
Engaging, man. Yeah, exactly.
this is the first Die Hard movie where I'm like watching it and I'm like, I am not engaged at all. Like I am so bored. John McClane looks so bored. These side characters are not charismatic in the slightest, like at all. Like who's the side character in this one? Like, you know, in the previous movie you had Samuel L. Jackson as Zeus, who was so much fun to be around. And this one, it's Justin
Discord moderator.
Yeah, Justin Long, the Discord mod. Like that's not interesting. Like
yeah, so we have like this hacker dude who's like obviously like I guess he's meant to be like this geek because we see all these statues like oh my gosh there's Spawn and like Vision and all these and like oh yeah the T-800 nuking his apartment somehow.
Yeah, all these geeky like references. Like yeah, okay, I get it. He's a geek.
Oh,
but, like,
and I get and he's also listening to like some 2000s like music because there's like this transition right where they try to transition a scene and like they started with phasing with like this blurred out music video or like some sort of rock band.
Well, yeah, and then he has like a Linkin Park poster in his apartment. Like yeah, like
yeah.
he's meant to be hip with the teenage crowd.
Yeah, and this somehow dates the movie more than the Trump and Hillary stuff.
Oh yes.
Which is surprising to say that because considering like all the stuff that happened in 2016, you think that would be more jarring, but no.
Yeah, no, that's no. The previous three movies, despite being dripped in 80s and 90s charm, have aged gracefully more so than this movie, which is just straight up 2007. And look, I love 2000s aesthetics. I grew up in the 2000s. They're fun aesthetics. I love like Linkin Park and early internet hacking. Like that's fun. Like
just don't do it in the Die Hard movie.
Yeah, no, like and it's because like Die Hard was all about like that late 80s, early 90s like technology boom and like, you know, because like that was one of the things is like John was just like in the first movie where he's like using the touchscreen, he's just like cute toy and like us being like oh haha early touchscreen, like we use touchscreens all the time now, but like
it makes sense back then.
It makes sense back then, but like I don't feel like this movie has like that much. Like I guess it does because like it doesn't have that much technology bashing from John. I guess it does because he doesn't have like a phone or something like that. I think that's like they make that a point, or like, you know, the whole movie is about like the villains are like these internet terrorists. They're hackers, like, but they like hack the U.S. government and they've taken over. And like, you know, the way they show that is like
they make YouTube poops.
They play a YouTube poop where like they have like all these different clips of like past presidents like just talking about like just talking,
just like talking to make like a
being like my fellow Americans, we have taken over the U.S. government or something like that, like, you know, like we will not back down, or like yeah, they're just playing these different clips to like mash them together. It's a YouTube poop essentially, like they're sentence mixing the past clips of the presidents. That's funny, but like that doesn't really say anything about these villains. First of all, the main villain is like played by Timothy Olyphant, who's just, he does not have the same charisma as like Hans Gruber or Simon. I think he's worse than Stewart, the villain from the second movie, because like
absolutely, yeah, because at least like even if Stewart didn't have that most, at least there was like some nuggets of it. You could like tell some stuff, like at least him being naked in like his introduction scene, like, as weird as that is, it gives something. Like, oh, he loves being naked on his own. Wow, that's a cool character trait.
It's weird, but it's something. Like, what does Thomas have? I think that's his name. Yeah, I'm looking at Letterboxd. His name was Thomas. Like, okay. Like it's
wow, if Stewart wasn't threatening enough, here we got Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah. Oh, Thomas the Tank Engine was the actual villain. Peak movie.
Yeah, he was the one who crashed into the elevator with the lady.
Yeah, he caused confusion and delay. But yeah, no, and then the other thing is like the hired goon characters, like the side villains, they're also not interesting. Like, yeah, you have Maggie Q as like that woman who goes through like 20 walls and dies in the elevator, but like that's basically all we remember from her. Like,
Yeah, we don't remember her as a character. We remember her for like the stupid stuff this movie does.
exactly. So like that's the thing. Like, we were so desperate. We were waiting for Kevin Smith to show up. Like, that's how desperate we were during this movie. We're like, so little interesting stuff is happening that we want Kevin Smith to come on screen. And then he eventually did. And yeah, he's the fat geek who like knows about
Yeah.
computers. And you're just like,
And he has one scene
a one
waiting for
scene.
that moment the
Yeah.
entire time.
Yeah.
And I think like the biggest issue I with this is like, okay, it's a Die Hard movie, hacker stuff that's not really what Die Hard is known for. Is more so known for like these big action set pieces
Mhm.
kind of thing with like explosions and that. If they wanted to do the internet like the like hacker kind of like angle with this to kind of make it new, like they could like they could have framed it better, but they don't because because the things they do, like the threats they do, like that's just one example where I'm pretty sure like they cause like they like basically predict like the 2008 with like the stock market like crash
Yeah, the
and all
stock
that.
market crash. Yeah.
Yeah, and and like the way they frame it, it feels like such a generic thing.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and there's this other scene where like you think they blow up like the White House or
Oh,
like
yeah.
whatever that yeah, and then you turns out, oh no, no, why they use the model.
Yeah, which
So like,
I mean, the scene in the explosion in the scene did look very model-ish, but like,
even then, like if you actually let it explode, like it could at least provided some tension to the movie. Like back again with the second movie with the airplane scene where like
yeah,
they get it to crash down. Like if they did something like that, like even if these villains were most boring ass like villains that ever existed, like at least you couldn't give the sense that they were threatening. But
yeah.
they don't do that
Well,
because it reveals, oh no, it's just a little trick that we did.
yeah, exactly. I mean, here's the thing with Die Hard. You know, like we were saying, like, you know, the movies are about these like big action set pieces. Like, and even though this movie does have action set pieces at some point, like a lot of them are CGI. So like, you know,
Yeah.
we're not really getting like anything that interesting. Like, and again,
Especially at like the climax of the movie, I'm pretty sure there's like this one scene where they're like driving, and then you get like this CG like aeroplane.
yeah, you
Like
see rubbery
coming.
CGI Bruce Willis jumping onto a plane. Like, it's
Yeah.
look, I don't want to bash CGI. I'm not like one of those like anti CGI, like, oh, practical good, CGI bad. Like, because CGI can be used to enhance things, but like, it's just not. This is one of those examples where it doesn't work. It's not as engaging.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I
And
don't
it
want
doesn't help
you.
that like there's like so few of like these like set pieces like in general, so they just end up sticking out more because when
Yes.
the majority of the movie is just talking and melodrama that we
Yes.
don't really care about, then yeah, it's gonna make the few good things stand out less.
Yeah. Well, again, like I remember Silver had like posted that video about character assassination in the server. And it talked about like, you know, at least with Live Free or Die Hard, there were some scenes where it at least understood John McClane as a character. And there is that one scene in the car where like John McClane and Justin Long are talking, and John McClane's just like, you know, oh, you know what happens when you're the good guy? You get shot at, you get a pat on the back, and that's it. And Justin Long's like, oh, why do you still do it? And he's like, well, I have to be. I'm the only one who can do it. Like, and I think that's a really cool scene, like a really good introspective scene for John McClane as a character. I just wish it was in a better movie. Like, you know, if you're going to have the characters talk, like, I'm okay with that as long as what they're talking about is interesting. And that's an interesting aspect, but the movie
That
frames it
doesn't
so
get fleshed
poorly.
out.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, because that would have been because like now I'm just thinking about different fan ideas. Like, what if like the concept of this movie is that like they could have done the whole it's like, oh, John McClane believes like since he's so experienced he has to do everything on his own, and now he's dealing with this new hacker threat he's not really familiar with. Like that could have been a cool way to like introduce like something that's not traditionally in a Die Hard movie
yeah.
in like a natural manner. They
A
could like
new
focus
threat,
on that.
like
Yeah.
heightening the stakes a little more, like adding tension. Yeah, exactly.
but they don't.
Nope.
At least not in an interesting way.
No. Oh god, this movie's so lame. And well, we have to talk about the final like part of the climax where like John yells out "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker." But remember, this is PG-13 and they don't let him say it. And again, like at least with PG-13, you can get one in there. It's like, okay, if he's not saying the F word every 5 seconds like he usually has, fine. Save it for the final like actual line that the movies are most famous for. But they can't even do that. And so at the end, when like Timothy Oliphant is like holding him at gunpoint, and he's just like, "All right, John, any last words?" And John McClane goes, "How about this? Yippee-ki-yay, mother!" And you're just like, "Oh." Like, or like, you know, like, "Oh, this is what it'll say on your grave." And he's like, "How about yippee-ki-yay, mother?" And you're just like, "Oh." Had he said it, I would have been a little more intrigued.
We were on the verge of greatness. We were this close.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's so frustrating. Again, like... I feel like I'm glad Silver posted that video because like I have a little bit more of an appreciation for this movie, but like very minuscule.
Not a lot.
No, it's not as good. And it's a shame because like, you know, unlike something like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull where I can appreciate a lot more aspects of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as like the fourth Indiana Jones movie, the one that didn't need to exist, but like, hey, at least it was directed by Spielberg. At least it like had aspects to it that I liked about it. I don't love it.
It was some elements that were fun.
Yeah, I can see myself revisiting Kingdom of the Crystal Skull a lot more than Live Free or Die Hard, for sure. Like this movie's just so lame. Like I can see myself maybe like thinking fondly on some scenes, like maybe I'll look up the cop car launching into the helicopter scene on YouTube someday, but like that would be the extent of it.
Maybe I'll look up the lady getting crashed into 50 million walls just for ironic enjoyment.
That's a
like, if there's like one thing, like if you're gonna like watch this movie, I will suggest like at least have like try to bring like a couple of people.
Oh
so,
yeah,
like, at least you're gonna have fun with the movie because I'm so glad with context, like with the first 3 movies, like I watched like through using the DVDs that I have, and I have a 4th DVD. But given the reputation, I decided to play it safe, you know, and did like a watch party we held at like the server, and I'm so glad I did because I watched this on my own. I wouldn't nearly have like as much fun, making fun of it as we had. Like,
watch.
Hans, let's just say the Discord mod Hans Groomer wouldn't have existed.
Oh, it's so true. Yeah, no, this was. I mean, it's not the best VC I've ever held, but like, it made it far more tolerable
bearable
for sure
to like go through for it.
Exactly. So I don't really have anything else much to say about this movie. It's lame. Some things were okay, but most of all it's just lame.
It's just boring, and I guess the only good thing that came for out of it is the DVD collection that I have.
Oh yeah, talk about it.
Okay, so basically it's like one of those movies where like it's like you have like this hard case and you put like the DVDs in, kind of similar to you know, those are old Star Wars ones that they have with like the original versions. But the thing is, it's like this big, it's like a proper like metal kind of like box that they have.
Oh
and
wow!
What they have is like they have I can like send photos of it, but like later to probably share with you.
Yeah, please do. I want to put these photos in the episode. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, for sure. But there has like this metal that looks a bit. They have like bullets shots that are like dented.
Oh, that's cool.
And you can actually like fill them and all that. Like they're not like the deepest holes, but like you can just fill it. And on it they have and on it has like this big like title called Bruce Willis Die Hard collection. And then on like the kind of like the side of it where
the spine
they say the spine they have the Die Hard collection, Die Hard, Die Hard 2, Die Harder, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Die Hard 4.0.
4.0. Damn Australians.
But yeah, But honestly, I'm glad it's called 4.0 because at least it's something you can assume that can play into the a hacker element of the movie, and
Oh yeah.
also it's also just like a funny thing to say.
Yeah, it is fun to say. I mean, I understand why
Yeah.
it's called Live Free or Die Hard over here because, well, first of all, Live Free or Die is the New Hampshire state motto, which is the funniest thing to me. Because I live near New
Yeah.
Hampshire, and like, yeah, that is absolutely their state motto. Like the way the people act up there.
You better live 3 or you die.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, very much New Hampshire-ish. But like, I guess here because like it's a very patriotic movie. I mean, it was made post 9/11. Like it was made in the 2000s, so like it has kind of that aspect of like, oh, the government. We're very vulnerable now. Like we're not the superpower you used to be. Like we can be taken advantage of for sure. Because like, well, the interesting thing about this movie is that it's based off of an article, like it says that in the credits. Remember, it said like based off an article by so and so, and you're just like, huh?
Really?
You mean it?
I had no idea because I was completely phased out by the movie.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you'd think it would be like based off of characters from the Die Hard movies. It's like, no, it's based off of an article. Well, I think because it's all about like hacking the U.S. government and like taking over the government from like that angle, like how easy that would be. How that
that could be an interesting concept.
Well, it was a genuine threat in the 2000s because of the rise of the internet and like how easy that kind of stuff is. Which it kind of dates this movie a little more because like we have such high tech cybersecurity. I mean, not to say like it's not possible, but like it's not as much. We're not as like
it's not as big of a possibility as it was.
We're not as caveman brained anymore when it comes to the internet. Like we kind of understand it a little more.
We know that it's hackers, not internet terrorists.
Yeah, internet terrorists.
that I'm gonna use that from now on. Yeah. That's just way too funny. It's like a day I need help. Oh yeah, what do you like help with? Yeah, so I think something happened because some internet terrorists got into my computer.
The only internet terrorists I see are TikTok users because they're assaulting my patience.
Oh no, they're hacking my attention span. It's depleting.
It's depleting. I can't pay attention. Hey, a goldfish.
A goldfish.
But yeah, no, that sounds like a really cool box set. Are you keeping it?
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely, yeah. Like I'm never gonna touch the fourth movie like a while, but at least it's a cool box set to have. So yeah.
I'm the same way with my box set. I didn't mention this, but I'm absolutely keeping mine. Yes, it's DVD quality, but like I still love it. Like I said, it's been in the collection for years now. I respect the hell out of it. It's just so much. It's just so cool to me. I love, and it's just the first three, so like I never have to worry about owning the fourth or fifth one.
I think like the only like benefit I have with the fourth one is I guess like I'm not sure how different the rating system in America is to Australia, but the way we have it, we have like G, PG, PG like 13 plus or whatever, and then you have M, and then MA15, and then it goes to R. So,
okay.
Yeah, so like the M is kind of more so for like teens, and then MA15 is kind of more gory, but like as long as you're 15 and over, you can like watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And Die Hard, the version of Die Hard 4 I have is rated M, so that could be the unrated, not PG version. So, and since I didn't use it on this watch, that could be like a reason for me to
check it out,
go back and see if there's any differences. I doubt it'll be anytime soon, far from it, but at least it's something.
And I doubt the changes would actually improve the movie any more so, it doesn't sound it. But hey,
well, I can say that the extended version of the fifth movie didn't change it.
Well, I guess it's any good a time to talk about Die Hard 5 or A Good Day to Die Hard. Well, I think it's funny that I have a trilogy box set. You have the quadrilogy box set. Neither of us own the fifth one.
The fifth one. And for good reason, too.
For good reason. So, I've definitely heard A Good Day to Die Hard as being the worst of the Die Hard movies. And it is, by a landslide, it is the worst one. Like,
it is.
When I watched it the first time, I was like, yeah, this is bad. But like watching it again, I was like, wow, this is nothing. Like, it's barely a Die Hard movie. Like, that's the thing with like these last two Die Hard movies is like it's kind of difficult to imagine it being a sequel to the first movie. Like, I I truly believe like these two movies, like, and maybe even especially this one, were like made as generic Bruce Willis action movies, but then like halfway through production, they're just like, hey, let's make it a Die Hard movie, because like the references to the first movie are so few and far between. Like, all you really have to do is just be like, hey, you're John McClane, and like, oh, that makes it a Die Hard movie now. Like,
And you may get the occasional like callback or like reference, but even then those are pretty rare because, like you said, these two movies felt like they were written as like completely different series like of action movies, right?
yeah,
And then I guess it's like, oh hey, we have an IP we haven't used in a while, we may as well bury it to the ground more if it
Yeah.
wasn't deep enough.
yeah. I don't know if that's exactly how it happens, but it feels like that because these movies, like, you could tweak it a little, and you could tweak these a little, and you'd have no idea this was a sequel to Die Hard. Like, at least with 2 and
Yeah.
3, like, you can't tweak those movies. Like, those are absolutely sequels to the first Die Hard. Whereas like these two, I don't buy it. I really
Yeah.
don't. But like this one especially, like I said, there's some things in 4 I respect. I have nothing to respect with this one. This is absolutely just worthless. Like,
I don't know why I held a glimmer of hope when I was watching this one, because like I knew it was gonna be bad, but like I was hoping for at least like it may as well be either funny bad, or at least it's made after the whole entire internet technology craze with you. At least there's some like cool concept they can play with, and like
no.
I don't know why I don't know why I was foolish to believe that why do I even bother? Like why?
Why do I even bother? It's
Yeah.
so boring. That's the thing with this movie is like there's not even like any scenes that's like are so bad. Like, there's just nothing to them. Like, it's such an empty experience, this movie. Like,
Yeah.
I can't even
Like,
really pinpoint specific things it does wrong. It just doesn't do anything right, you know?
Yeah, it's not even like severely wrong because everything it does wrong is equally bad. Like
Yeah.
there's only one it's like action set piece that's remotely kind of gives me Die Hard. I think it's when like he's chasing the bad guys like on road and all that, and then he goes off the bridge to go on top of like these this truck that's carrying other cars and all that. So like that in theory could be a cool kind of somewhat Die Hard-esque scene. But
Yeah.
like the way it's framed, like oh my gosh, the way these action scenes are framed, it's horrendous.
Shaky
Like,
cam to the max. Like, I'm not
as
inherently
many
against
cuts as possible.
Yeah, I'm not inherently against shaky cam. I think it can be used well, like in the Jason Bourne movies, but like here it's just awful. Like, and yeah, like that scene where he's chasing the bad guys through the streets of Russia, like that could be cool, but like no, like it is so lame. And also, like in that video Silver had posted, it's not indicative of John McClane as a character. Like, John McClane is an asshole in this one, but like an unlikable asshole. How he's like endangering people for his own sake. Like, he would never do that.
He says sorry after he causes the damage.
Yeah, he says sorry after he causes the damage. Like, that's not John McClane.
And I just think back to that one scene in the first movie where all the hostages are captured on top of like the helipad, and like the FBI and and it's about to like blow up, and like the FBI and like helicopters and all that, and he's trying to tell them to all go back, and then like he's willing to, and then he shoots the bullets in the air to pretend he's a terrorist to save these people. Like, he risks himself, and there's many other examples through the other movies. Like, even in the fourth one, you could probably find a smidgen of an example.
Well, like in the third movie where he's like driving through Central Park, like he's honking his horn. He's like saying, hey, get out of the way. Like, he's not trying to hit people. Whereas like in this movie, he's endangering a lot of people. I guess, oh, they're Russians, so it doesn't matter. Haha. But it's like, no, like that doesn't matter. Like,
there's still people.
There's still people. Like, John McClane would never endanger people. Like, he was, it's, you know what? Like, even while I was watching the movie, I didn't even really think about that because I was so bored out of my mind. But it's like, no, that is a very major problem with the movie. But like, there's so many other things wrong with it that you don't even think about that. You're just like,
Yeah.
I just
Like,
hate it. It's just so
yeah,
boring.
the biggest problem, yeah, that's as big as being boring. Like, once again, this was another watch party we did,
Yeah.
and for 30 minutes of the movie, out of this 1 hour and 40-minute movie, because it's an extended cut, 30 minutes of this movie, we're talking about the no word sign from the third movie.
Because that was well worth our time.
More interesting. We're
Yeah.
making jokes about that. That's when we figured out it was like done through digital effects, which is, I guess, is the one good thing that came back from watching this movie.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then we saw the digital effects in this movie, and they were god awful.
God awful. And then like there's this whole entire like beef that like his son and he has, which do I even need to get into that?
Well,
guess
so
because,
that's one of the biggest things with this movie is like it's John McClane and his son Jack, and Jack is played by Jai Courtney, who is Captain Boomerang from the Suicide Squad movies, and has just had like one of the worst careers I've ever seen. Like, yes, he was in Suicide Squad, which was a huge hit, but like, man, he just chooses the worst movies to be in. You almost gotta feel bad.
yeah, like even in like the good Suicide Squad movie, like, oh, spoiler alert, don't care, his character immediately dies in like the first few minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and then he was in Terminator Genesis and I, Frankenstein. I feel bad for this guy. Jesus Christ. He's Australian. I feel really bad for him. Like he needs a good movie, man. I feel bad.
Come on,
because he's not a
like,
terrible actor. He's actually pretty
Yeah.
okay. Like I can see him
even
working.
in this one, like
Yeah.
at least he's doing a good American accent, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's convincing.
Yeah, I could see him being like John McClane's son in a good movie, but not in this movie. Like he just does not work at all.
Yeah, because it's almost as if it's a poorly written movie that's not good at framing.
It's so
and stuff.
bad. And, like the villains are easily the worst here because
don't even get me started.
you don't even. Well, so first of all, you don't even know he's the main villain for like the majority of the movie until the movie decides, oh, right, we need a twist villain. Even though, again, twist villains does not automatically mean good writing, guys. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the one thing that annoys me. That they do 2 twists with this movie, and it's not like a interesting thing with like the third movie where it's like a twist motivation, or like even a good twist, which is like I in the second movie where at least that changes it in an interesting way. Like, no, it just doesn't. There's like 2 twists in these movies because there's like one where you initially think, oh, the guy who ends up being the villain, he's presented the good guy for the majority of the movie, and they initially have to rescue his daughter or something like that. And then it realized, oh, the daughter's the villain. Oh no, betrayed. And
then he's the villain because he was working together with his daughter, and you're just like, who cares? Like, again, like the villains in the Die Hard movie are always up to something, and then John just like happens to be there. Whereas like in this movie, John goes out of his way to make himself part of the conflict, which is not something John McClane would do.
Saying that he was on vacation.
Oh, that's the frustrating part. Yeah, so like he's just like for whatever reason, they're just like, John, go get your son in Russia. It's like, why him? Like, why? What experience does he have? Like, yes, he's been in 4 Die Hard movies, but like, what does that really qualify him with going abroad internationally to Russia to get his son? Like, yeah, and then like there's a whole confusing side gag where they're just like every 5 seconds he's going like, I'm on vacation. It's like, no, you're fucking not. Like,
you willingly went on this mission to get your son.
If he was on
beef.
If he was on vacation, that would probably be funny. Like if he was like in Paris, like, oh, I'm supposed to be having a nice calming vacation in Paris, but then like, oh, terrorists take over, and then he has to like that would be funny. But no.
Yeah, I mean, he could bring back the son again and say who was in Paris.
Yeah, he was in Paris. I don't know. It's just like I don't know, because like
something interesting.
Because like saying he's on vacation in Russia just does not make sense to me. Russia's not a place you go on vacation to unless you're from
this movie where everything's desaturated.
Oh god, it's so ugly and boring looking. It's the cinematography is like, it looks like shit. Again, I guess because it takes place in Soviet Russia, even though, again, the Soviet Union doesn't exist. Like, it's Russia. It's just normal fucking Russia. But like, no, it has to look all saturated, and all the characters talk like this, and they drink vodka.
Yes, we all have to do the funny dance and eat sandwich.
Yeah, eat sandwich, wear tracksuit. Like, yeah, Russian stereotype after Russian stereotype. It's obnoxious.
And we can also have the twist that the Russians were the bad guys because you are Russian spy or whatever dumb like thing you could come up with.
And they're in like Chernobyl or something. Is that where they went? Did they go to? No, they went to somewhere. They went to some abandoned like Russian town.
They did take some uranium stuff, so there was some stuff.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like even like they like it feels like we don't even know if it feels like we don't know like what like the real motivation of these villains are because at least like even like in like in the other movies like even though they're like the most complex goals like oh they want money or they have like they don't like America or whatever, at least those are motivations that like that are somewhat clearly like told to us or,
at
like,
least in the
like,
fourth movie you understand they just want to like hack the government like and take it over
because they're French
because
right? We get it because they're French.
yeah whereas like in this movie what's the villain's motivation? I have no idea. I don't even remember the villain's name. I really don't.
Yeah, the only thing I remember was just like, okay, he did a twist. There's like the one that the twist happens. He kills the guy that supposedly betrayed him early in the movie, which we don't even remember because the movie doesn't bother really to spend time.
Oh yeah, the guy he calls the guy, and the guy's getting a massage, and it just so happens that the masseuse hitman is like choking him at the same time he calls him. He's like, oh, what a coincidence. Unless he planned it that way. I don't know. Did he plan it that way? I don't know anything about this villain for me to know that.
Yeah, and it's not even like and it's not even anything like ironically funny about them, like the lady in the fourth movie. Like nothing.
No, there is nothing. Like I said, there is nothing to this movie. It is so empty. Like
even when it tries to do like character moments, like I think like it's good like again like throughout those 30 minutes we were talking about the son, right? It was during scenes where he and his son are bonding, and like or they're assuming that he's bonding, and like in during one of those like it's just space between one of those scenes, there's a scene where like they picklock the cars and like they get the equipment, and you think like oh they're going to do an action scene now, and then it just immediately cuts back to like another dialogue scene that like lasts for another 10 minutes.
It's so boring. Yeah, again, just talking scenes. Again, I'm not entirely against talking scenes. Like you can have
just make them good.
You can have interesting talking scenes. Like I'm a pretentious asshole. I love movies where interesting characters talk, but like when they actually talk about something interesting, that's when I'm into it. When it's not, it's just nothing. Like like the only scenes I can remember from this movie that are like anything I got anything out of, like there's that scene where like he stops a car and like a guy like walks out and starts screaming at him in Russian, and like Bruce Willis like punches the guy and he's just like, you think I understand a fucking word you're saying? Like again, that is very out of character for John McClane, but like at least it was something. Like it was an attempt at something.
Yeah, the only bits of this movie I really remember is always something with the action set pieces, because at least even if it's boring generic action, at least it's action I can turn off my brain to. Like they somehow made him like spinning the car around to dodge a rocket boring. I don't know how they do it, but they did it.
But they did it. And then the ending when the female villain like tries to kill them because they killed the father, and she like rams the helicopter into them, but then they like fall down the building, and it is one of the ugliest looking climaxes I've ever seen, because the cinematography is so bad. I was like, what am I even looking at? They're like flying through the air.
And they don't even do the yippee-ki-yay line right.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah, we missed the yippee-ki-yay motherfucker line because...
Yeah, I think I was the only one who noticed it during the watch
I think you were, yeah, because again, we were talking over it. Again, we probably shouldn't have been, but we were so bored out of our mind. Like, you cannot blame us. Like, we were so bored. Like, we had nothing else.
I'll just quickly give like a TLDR about what was happening. So,
please.
Usually at the end of okay. So basically, I could care less how they do it, but like the female, like the daughter villain is like on the helicopter, and John McClane's inside the helicopter with a car, and then he has to drive the car out and to like stop her for some reason, and then in that scene where before he jumps out with the car to drag the helicopter down, I guess he says "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker," that the iconic line, and then he goes out of the car. And you think, oh, maybe a cool explosion happens, and nothing happens. Like it's not even at the climax. It's just more generic action flying through. Like the explosion doesn't of the helicopter with a terrible shot doesn't even happen until like maybe another 5 minutes after he says the line.
So even though we missed Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, I don't feel bad that I missed it because it wasn't utilized well. Which is one of the biggest sins a Die Hard movie can pull, is not utilizing Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker properly. Like they use it better as like a tagline for the movie when they say Yippee-ki-yay, Mother Russia, which would be really funny if the movie was better, but it's not.
Yeah. And it would be really funny if he said Yippee-ki-yay, Mother Russia to like solidify his disdain for Russian people, I guess, because that's what I learned from this movie. He really hates Russians.
Yeah. Is
there anything else to like talk about it?
No, there really isn't. I guess the last thing I want to mention is like that scene where like they fall into like the water, and like Jack comes out and he's just like John, because the whole movie he calls his dad John, and then at the last second he's just like Dad, as like he's really like terrified, like is his dad dead? And then Bruce Willis is like right here, like again, that should be like a really heart-wrenching scene where he finally calls his father Dad. No, I couldn't care less. It's so boring. Like,
remember in Indiana Jones 3 at the climax, where they actually did the father-son stuff well.
Yeah, where he's just like,
and, like Indy reaches for like the fact that he reaches for the thing, and like his father says don't do it after all this time. Oh yeah, like that tank scene when he says like, oh, he's just calling out for his son because he thinks his son's dead. Like, if you're gonna do a familial element to the movie, like do it well.
Yeah. Remember Last Crusade? Remember a good movie?
Well, I guess it wouldn't. I guess in many ways, Die Hard is just like Indiana Jones because the last two, of course, just had to be bad.
Yeah, but at least Kingdom of the Crystal Skull gave me something. Well, that's the thing is like I think we were talking about it. Like somebody asked me after the movie, they were like, "Okay, Dial of Destiny or Good Day to Die Hard," and I really was struggling with that because I hate both of those movies. But like, I guess Dial of Destiny, because like when I think of like comparing bad movies, I'm like, which would I rather rewatch? Like with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull or Live Free or Die Hard, like that's easy for me. Like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull sucks, but like I can see myself rewatching that again. Whereas like with Dial of Destiny and Good Day to Die Hard, I really just don't want to watch either of them again. But like if I had to choose, probably Dial of Destiny, like. There might be something to get out of those.
Yeah, because like at least with that, even though I do think it's the worst indie movie, like at least it's not completely 100% terrible to the same extent that like this Die Hard movie is.
Yeah, no,
because I'm comparing both as an action movie. Like this makes Dial of Destiny like Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, like at least with Dial of Destiny, I can pinpoint awful things about it, but like I can pinpoint like things that I didn't entirely hate. I'm like, I like the first 45 minutes. Like I don't like that it
guy who Sims.
Yeah, like the guy who Sims. I mean, I don't like the CGI Harrison Ford, but like I like the idea of the beginning. Whereas like in Good Day to Die Hard, there's nothing. Like it is genuinely one of the most nothing sequels I've ever seen. Like it's so bad. It is so boring.
And it's made worse because we know that there's like good Die Hard sequel you can do. And so when you just off of a movie that's just completely flat in like every single regard, it's just so infuriating. I think
you make a very good point there. Yeah, because we like had there been other bad Die Hard movies, like if this was like Jurassic Park where like there was not a single good sequel after that, like by the time we get to Dominion, I'm like, yeah, it's a bad Jurassic Park sequel. Like, I knew these were bad. Whereas, like, here, there were good Die Hard sequels. 2 and 3 were so much fun. And then you get to 5, and it falls so completely flat on its face. Like, yeah, there's something far more insulting about that.
Yeah, it's just... I mean, in, like, to try to get something out of this movie, this really makes me want to die hard on a day that's not very good.
Same. So I think it's safe to say we will not be seeking out Good Day to Die Hard to add to either of our collections. I think
we'll not be getting Die Hard est.
No,
as the kids call it.
Absolutely not. This is staying far away from my collection.
I
I
think having 4 is enough for me.
Yeah, if anything, 4 I can see people keeping for like something, but like no, like 5, absolutely not. I mean, I'm not keeping 4 either, but like, you know, I think I did have 4 on DVD like years and years and years ago, and I think that's how I first watched it. But like, I got rid of that pretty fast. So for good reason.
Yeah, for good reason.
I think it's a shame that this is the last Die Hard movie because, well, apparently there were plans for a 6th one that like Fox was going to do, but then Disney bought them out and didn't really see it as worth it, so they canned it. Like they officially canceled Die Hard 6. I think it was going to be called like McClane, and it was going to be like a Godfather Part 2 where they have like old man McClane, but then they also have flashbacks to McClane in the 70s, and it's like that. I mean, it sounds interesting, but like we're not interested in Die Hard before Die Hard. Like that just sounds
because we already kind of knows what happens before he gets old. Like,
exactly.
Not really much to expand.
Yeah.
That like the sequel's already shown. I was like they could have done it. Like that, but they wasted it.
Yeah. Look, as mad as I am at Disney for everything that they do, because they make a lot of shitty mistakes and a lot of shitty decisions, but like, I'm going to have to side with them on this one. I don't think you could have made a good Die Hard 6. So like, as bad as Good Day to Die Hard is, I'd rather just leave it there. Like, just leave it there. I mean, that's why I want to keep the first 3 as a trilogy. Cause it's like, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, Die Hard ended in 1995. So like, that's just the reality I'm living with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need to make another movie to make fun of my collection. 4's already right there. Like, I think I'm good. Yeah,
exactly. So,
yeah.
Is there anything else we have to say about anything Die Hard related? I'm glad we did this episode, even though it's nearly 3 hours long. I'm glad we did this. Like, I'm glad I was able to really solidify that I love the first 3 Die Hard movies so much. Like, and I want to keep watching them for years and years to come.
I'm thankful, like, I really got to watch these for the first time and realize there are only 3 Die Hard movies.
Yeah. What are you talking about? We didn't spend the last hour talking about 4 and 5. What are you talking about?
No, we spent the last hour talking about the sign from Die Hard 3.
Yeah, exactly. As one does.
As one does. I mean, we may as well.
Yeah. I mean, look, as bad as 4 and 5 got, I love a good franchise review here on Too Many Movies. I'm glad we were able to talk about all 5 movies, and now I never have to watch 4 and 5 ever again. So that's nice.
Yippee!
Kaye, motherfucker.
Yay.
Oh, so bad clips. Now's the part of the show. Please shout out your stuff, dude. Where can people find you?
I don't know. Your jokes aside, I have a YouTube channel of the same name. I sometimes do a YouTube poop, mostly on anime stuff, but sometimes other stuff. I also have a letterbox. Well, I don't really post much on there as I normally do, but at least I have like the Paul Blart Evangelion as my profile picture, so that's something to worth knowing that poster exists. And yeah, I think that's it.
Oh, nice. Well, your links will be in the description below. They can follow you on Letterboxd and see you talk about the castle, the vibes of that movie.
Yeah, the vibes. Yeah, I wish I was talking about the castle instead of like these last 2. I mean, a Dale digging a hole is infinitely more entertaining than the last 2 combined.
I agree. Yeah, that's true. The first 3 diehards, they belong in the pool room.
They belong in the pool room.
Yeah. So, Bad Clips, thank you so much for coming on today's episode to discuss the Die Hard Quintology. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you thank you for having me on. Like to talk about these movies. It was a great experience.
Yeah, well, it was a long experience, but that's fine. But yeah, thanks for coming on, and thank you, the listener, for listening to today's episode. If you want to support the show, give a like, give a comment, listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or on YouTube. That's fine too. Doesn't matter. But yeah, thanks for watching, and always remember, yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon. Ooh, I subverted your expectations. I actually said the thing from the second movie, the TV ad.
That's amazing. Well, if Christmas is like this, I better be around for New Year's.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. All right, goodbye, everybody. Just